Get my kitty cat. His name's Happy. Happy cat. Welcome. This is January the 7th, 2026. It's a big honor to introduce Clif High. Clif High, he does future viewing using predictive linguistics with leaks from psychic parts of everyone. So it's great to see you, Cliff. Thanks for joining me for the first time.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the invitation. Yep,
And tell us a bit about what you do, because what you do is unique. You invented the system around 1993, right?
correct. It was a precursor to what they call the LLMs, large language models, and I did asymmetric linguistic trend analysis. Um, Basically, I aggregated all kinds of text off the internet, just regular speech, and looked for words that were inappropriate, and they were being put in by people's subconscious, leaking them out, and they were prescient. And this is because the universe talks to us constantly and gives us information about what's coming up. We have predictive minds that participate in creating our common shared reality. And so I thought to mine those minds and get a broad picture of where our reality is and how it's shaping up. It was very effective. It still is very effective. And I've gotten some of the timing issues resolved. Those were really terrible, trying to get time. Time doesn't exist. It's only a construct in our mind. Therefore, everybody's mind has a different level of construct around time. So when they're when they're leaking out the prescient language into the internet, it doesn't carry over with an effective calendar kind of a date, right? So it's basically a guess as to when this stuff will manifest. So stuff that was visualized in the data in 2017, we're living through now. Okay, but it had been pegged for maybe 2018, 2019 at the time it was rolling out. But Corona, the COVID, was available in my reports in the very first one in 1999. It was simply called the sun disease. Sun has a coronavirus, right? And so all of these things, we didn't know what it would be called back in 1999. So when everybody was leaking out all of that information, it came through as sun disease. And coincidentally, we also have the skies being whited out. We have sun disease in the sense that the sun is all white now instead of yellow the way it was when I was born. So it's gone through a major transformation. It seems to be moving slowly towards blue or something like that. And so all of these concepts come through our subconscious, trigger words within our brains, and those words leak out in our ordinary conversations. And we're just not really aware that we're actually spewing out prescient language. I was able to find new money in 2001, which turned out to be Bitcoin, later on to manifest in 2009 with the white paper, and so on and so on and so on, right? So we don't have, it didn't come out and say Bitcoin in 2001, right? It just said new money and then tried to describe it. Make sense?
Yeah, that's amazing. What you said about time kind of intrigues me. I've heard that in the UFO community, they say that time doesn't exist as well. From a higher dimension, it doesn't exist.
There is no other higher dimension. That's a bunch of horseshit. Okay, sorry, I don't want to be abusive, but there is
I guess
supreme
there's
time.
different ways of describing this. It's something
Okay,
beyond us, so it's
exactly.
hard to describe.
Exactly. So we don't have a common language. We live in what I call a common shared reality. Okay. So coming from Shinshin Soitsu Aikido approach, right? Or Zazen meditation. So you clear your mind, and if you go deep enough, you do what they call touching the void, right? You eliminate everything between you and supreme consciousness. And so it reveals to you a different reality. And so there is no atoms, there's no matter, there's no stuff anywhere. We are but energetic vessels that have our consciousness put in it. Our consciousness is in no way different than the spring consciousness. It is just a little chunk of it shoved into this energetic vessel that we call the soul. That energetic vessel, the soul, is with us, and it helps us create our manifest reality and make our matter. And it goes with us from life to life to life. There is no time. There is just the eternal now. Go back 2 days. I implore you, if you think there's time, go back or forward and prove me wrong. There's only the eternal now. Within the eternal now, there is the pleroma that Jesus called the living Father, and then there is the event stream that comes from the pleroma. The pleroma is an ancient Greek word meaning the abundant fullness, the source of everything. We can just say source, right? But it's used in the New Age movement, and people say, oh, the source is going to alter my consciousness, raise me up in consciousness. That's horseshit. You are not able to affect your consciousness in any way, shape, or form. Nothing, even death, can affect your consciousness because it is part of supreme consciousness. It is merely tricking itself into thinking itself isolated from the rest of supreme consciousness in order that we might have this life experience that is an experiment for supreme consciousness, okay? And so if you take that approach, then you have a very interesting and analytical tool, in my opinion. You have supreme consciousness and the illusion. And so all of our lives are living within the illusion. Therefore, anybody saying there are orders, magnitudes, Gnosis style, Buddhist style, magnitudes of consciousness and beings and demons and all of that, they're saying all of that within the illusion. So of course it exists within the illusion. Is it meaningful? No. Just because you see demons, will I see them? No. That's part of your reality. It's not necessarily part of our common shared reality. Okay, it exists in your head. So I quite truly believe that the great intergalactic butthead Corey Goode, who sued me for saying he lied about going into space. And
He did lie about that, Corey. He did. But he admitted it. He finally admitted it in 2022.
No, he denied his admission. He admitted
Then, oh
it
yeah, it's part of the game.
Right, exactly. But nonetheless, he sued me, right? But I actually think he did indeed have an encounter with an entity, if you want to call it that way, that was his blue space chickens. It was not manifest. It was only in his brain, only in his part of the delusion. And it was for the purposes of keeping his mind going in the scam that he was running and stuff. So it was not meaningful to the rest of us, right? But he did. So people have encounters with entities, and yeah, that's fine, guy. I took LSD for 42 days straight when I was a kid, and I had a lot of encounters with a lot of entities. Absolutely meaningless beyond those encounters themselves and what information I may have gotten out of them. Because here's the thing. We're part of supreme consciousness. So we have telepathy, we have co-creation abilities. I can manifest, I can put thoughts in my head and put an emotional attachment to them, follow a very short emotional protocol, and I can manifest that thing that was in my head. Okay, I did this over time, and I am retired now at age 72. I don't have to work. I don't have to worry about money because I decided that was a goal of mine, to not have to worry about it. And I did that through manifestation, right? And all the way along the process. Everybody can manifest, maybe. There's some suggestion in ancient Avastanic literature, which is a precursor to Sanskrit. There's some suggestion in one of these hymns that when the Elohim, the space aliens that the Jews took as gods, when the Elohim came down to Earth, they insisted on males being circumcised. Okay, the nut job Somalis and all these other people take it to female circumcision too, but it's not necessary. They're just doing it from a religious perspective. The Elohim had a particular thought in mind. Humans can manifest, females not so much. Mostly manifestation is a process of the male body and emotional and energy and the way we're constructed. Females can't manifest the way that men manifest because females manifest and bind consciousness to matter and give birth. Okay, so that's their method of manifesting. Men can't do that. No matter how, if you cut your dick off, it's not going to matter. You're not a woman. Biological determinism rules. You're never going to be able to give birth. Well, other parts of biological determinism are quite accurate as well. If you have inbreeding in your social order for hundreds of years, you end up with Somalis, right? And there's nothing you can do about that. They're biologically determined to be very low on the intelligence scale because of their cultural practices. Same thing with Pakistanis. Biological determinism extends to the nature of our bodies as well. So circumcision, the removal of the foreskin from the penis of males, removes 5 million sensors. But it also alters the vagus nerve and some of these other nerves that are involved in the manifestation process. So it's my thinking and that of my old farts group. We're a bunch of old retired guys like myself that go through old languages and stuff. It's our thinking that when the Elohim came down, they insisted that the Jews circumcise, and they gave them this religious horseshit to back it up. But they wanted them to do it so they couldn't manifest their way out of the slavery to the Elohim. And that they keep continuing with the circumcision, even though the Elohim have long left the planet, still means Jews don't manifest. They have to, or the Ashkenazi, who are not Jews, that's another line of horseshit anyway, but so they have to use the manifestation ability of others. And that's why they're also trying to spread male circumcision throughout the whole human species, to prevent us from being able to grasp this essential level of power that universe and supreme consciousness has provided to us. And so basically it's this way. We have supreme consciousness is everything. Then we have the illusion that we all live in. In that illusion is the eternal now, and we get to see supreme consciousness in the form of the pleroma, and we get to see supreme consciousness creating reality in the form of the event stream. And our minds, our emotions, our energy can affect that manifestation in a short period before it happens, okay? In so doing, we are reacting to the fact that we are inherently supreme consciousness. So we're just sort of like dropping down out of the material reality, scooting over and causing supreme consciousness to make an alteration in what we want to appear. It's not particularly mysterious if we're supreme consciousness. It's absolutely mind-boggling if you think we're grit. If you think, as the Jews and the academics do, that matter actually is solid and is there and is meaningful, right? So if you see it as supreme consciousness and use this as an analytical tool, you can easily determine very quickly whether or not you want to pay attention to something. So Corey Good pops up and says all of his horseshit. I say, no, he's within the illusion. He's doing all of that stuff. Within the delusion, he is deluded because he's bought into the illusion, is participating with it, magnifying it, and so on, getting involved with it. So obviously this man has never meditated. He understands nothing from Seiza or Vipassana. You know, he's never done any of these activities, and his mind is under the control of the illusion itself. It's my thinking that this year we change, okay, as a humanity. I know this, or I think this because I've died 3 times in this body, and I'm able to see the eternal now in the event stream, okay? And I can see the pleroma, the living Father that Jesus saw, right? Jesus was not divine. Jesus was one of us. He was a regular human. He was very advanced in his ability to manifest the miracles, right? Water to wine, all of that. It's a manner of manifestation. You tell your supreme consciousness, hey, dude, you know, ship us over some of that good bubbly, right? And it does it. But we're at this point this year where our eternal now has been complicated. Okay, there is no time. What we think of as time is merely our sense of duration that comes from the sequencing of the event stream continuously. The event stream never stops. It comes from the abundant fullness, the living source of everything, and it never stops. It's continuous. But because our minds perceive it as it is appearing in this material reality, there is a sequence to it that gives us the idea of duration. And then we start counting. You know, it tricks our minds into the numeracy, and thus we come up with days, weeks, and so on. But there's only this eternal now. Well, within the eternal now, when you die, you don't die. Your consciousness can't be destroyed. It can't be altered. You shed the body and you go on to another body, right? That all happens within the eternal now. Well, it used to be that our local version of that eternal now was humans and dolphins and cats and dogs and all of this kind of thing, right? Well, now there's aliens in it. All right. So the aliens are, I think the Three Eye Atlas really changed things. Whatever the circumstances, however it's populated, whatever, it seems to be a marker for the visibility of these aliens within the eternal now. And I'm not the only one. Okay. So there are a lot of people, for instance, you'll see lots of all right. So I have a girlfriend, very remarkable woman. Her name is Heidi Vandenberg. She's so fucking psychic, it scares the crap out of you. Okay, truly. I mean, I'm used to psychic people. I have psychic not episodes, but avenues myself, and I'm freaked out by how psychic she is. All right, so the level of activity that we're going to get relative to the aliens being within the eternal now is going to affect all of us through these psychic channels, whether or not we pay attention to them. Some people, I've seen a number of women online, are saying women are sensitive that way, psychic, right? That's part of their half of our combined whole as a species in being human beings, right? And so they're more psychic because they can bind consciousness to flesh. We're more material. We can manifest the matter, okay? The psychic aspect of this is going to it is currently being expressed in these women that are feeling some form of consciousness. They think they're talking to entities, Nordics, reptilians, whatever the fuck, right? Living in Three Eye Atlas. All of that is aside, I think at outside of their discernment, outside of their labels, they are indeed sensing something, right? They're sensing the alien presence in our eternal now, our
Yeah, I
local
think there's an
version.
alien presence been here a long time. Yeah, I've been
Correct.
really
I think
focused
it's
on
much
this.
more active and much more
Yeah.
visible.
And it's about
So I
consciousness, I
agree.
think. I think consciousness is kind of fundamental to the universe, and they're trying to poke our consciousness or sort of
No,
enter our
no. See, that
consciousness.
we have to alter our words, okay?
Yeah, yeah,
Because they can't alter our consciousness. They are our consciousness. There is the
yeah,
same kind of consciousness as we are. There's
yeah.
no difference between
One
my
consciousness.
consciousness and any other being in this
Yeah,
universe.
yeah, I agree
Okay,
with that.
and there's actually no difference in the amount of consciousness. And I will never have any greater consciousness or lesser consciousness. I can have greater awareness. I can have my mind do things like get me really drunk so I don't pay attention to my consciousness, right? But I can't alter my consciousness. When I sober up, I'm still there. I'm still the same guy. You can't alter consciousness permanently in any way, shape, or form. The aliens are as conscious as us. They're out here in the eternal now doing stuff, right? Those women are perceiving them as Nordics or whatever because of the
Yeah,
way in which their mind filters it,
yeah,
right?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay, so I don't find that part to be meaningful, right? I don't care if she thinks it's a Nordic or a reptilian or whatever.
yeah. There's
What I do
grays and
find me
mantises, and people have
exactly.
witnessed grays and mantis seem to be the highest, the most wisest, most loving, and
No, no, sorry.
organized for the grays.
Okay, sorry. That's an
Well, that's
illusion.
one. Some witnesses say that. What's
Some
your?
witnesses say that. My very first journey to hyperspace with non-synthetic psychedelics was on mescaline. Okay, and my very first journey to hyperspace. Well, in taking acid, you'd get stoned and stuff, but you didn't go anywhere. It was no real illumination. You had the feelings and this kind of thing. However, I took a serious dose of very fresh mescaline, and it was crystallized at a very low temperature. This matters. And I got really zapped and I went to hyperspace and I encountered a mantis. All right. So now bear in mind, I'm in hyperspace, but
Wow, a mantis.
I'm still within the delusion, right? In the illusion of it all. I'm not in supreme consciousness, but I'm at that border between the illusion and supreme consciousness that it's all frothy, that the psychedelic journey people, the explorers, call hyperspace. In there, I encountered a mantis being. Now, we can go into whether or not it existed or any of that other stuff. Nonetheless, it was inimical. It was annoyed. I popped into its laboratory, a nice, clean, pristine space, nothing in there but this giant mantis being. It's not really a mantis, it just sort of looks like it, and myself. And it was very annoyed at me and threw me out. into the rest of hyperspace, which was chaotic beyond your understanding because every atom is talking to you and everything they're saying to you is magnified by every other thing that's talking to you. It is the most chaotic thing you can ever imagine. Anyway, I got annoyed and I went back in and he got really pissed that I was able to get back into his area. He was able to, and I say he, but he was able to push out all other consciousness within his laboratory. And that's why he was annoyed that I popped in there when he was doing something, right? Anyway, though, so they are not happy. No being will ever have human interest. They'll never concern themselves with us in any way, shape, or form that does not benefit them. All beings only act in their own interest. The mantis wants stuff that's good for the mantis, and he doesn't give a shit about you. Same thing is true of reptilians, Nordics, any of these other constructs in your mind are there to make you feel good if you think that they're happy for you and good for you, and they have, tender feelings towards humanity. It's entirely generated by you and does not exist in the external reality. And you're a fool to actually act on that because the external reality does exist to some degree within our common shared reality, and you have no control over how they're shaping their aspect of our common shared reality. And many of these beings do not have any, they don't want us here. They fear us because of our abilities of our minds, the fact that our species is separated into male and female, and that we each have complementary but differing abilities in the psychic realm. But we're extremely powerful together, and they worry about us because of the primary predator dark forest idea, right? That a primary predator will arise to dominate the planet. And at that point, then they realize, oh, there's other planets out there. There might be other primary predators like us. We'd better keep real quiet, not let them know. Oh, but we can see those guys over there, humans, because they're stupid and they're broadcasting. We'd better go and wipe them out because we don't want them to get enough skills to come and wipe us out. And that's the thinking that permeates this universe. It is not kumbaya, happy, Corey Good, David Wilcock kind of horseshit.
Yeah. You have a Buddhist worldview. There's like 31 planes of existence. Nirvana is just off the charts.
Yeah.
This would be like the
That's
eternal now.
numeracy. Yeah, that's numeracy. That's like the Buddhist stuff. That's like the Taoist. Taoists did less of that. They didn't get as captured as the Buddhists with numeracy. Human minds get really trapped by numbers.
Yeah, I
They
don't
think
know
numbers are
numeracy.
meaningful.
What's numeracy? I don't know that.
Numerology, various layers, some things we can count, differentiation,
Oh, okay.
reductionism. Okay. So I have a tendency to encapsulate ideas. So for me, numeracy is numerologists, reductionism, analytical from a grit perspective. So the Judaics, the academics, they perceive of our universe as the grit exists, that if all consciousness died, the grit would still exist, which is bullshit, right? The grit is only there because we're sensing this. I have no neurons in my brain right at this moment, none whatsoever. Neither do you. Okay. They are only there when we go to look for them. You'll only find neurons and stuff in your head when you go to look for them. We live in a very efficient illusion. The illusion does not bother to create the props unless the plot calls for it. Right? Why put the energy into that? The supreme consciousness is the ultimate energy calculation. So it doesn't bother to do that sort of thing. But if life is intent on finding it, universe will keep doing everything it can to have you succeed. It wants you to succeed. So these guys with CERN are the ultimate gritologists. They think they're going to find a God particle, and they keep looking for smaller and smaller and smaller particles, and universe is rushing around ahead of them, creating those smaller particles for them to find because they want to find the smaller particles. And it's not meaningful at all. And no particles ever glom together to form God or life or consciousness or any of that. Their whole paradigm is bullshit. It's falling away. Matter doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is supreme consciousness. All of this stuff out of the Bible, all of the origination stories out of any of our ancient literature are bullshit because they're all structured within the delusion itself. right? So, but they don't acknowledge that they're being created, and that their vision only extends out to the edges of the delusion. You got to read the Talmud, 63 pages of the most disgusting garbage you're ever going to run across, right? 63 volumes, not 63 pages. It's a big thing. It's hundreds of pounds of books. And I had a copy in English. There's many copies you can get online. And it's really disgusting, the stuff that's in there. And it's absolute, and it's commentary, it's comical, it's delusionary, and bound by its own thinking and limited by the book itself, just like the Quran. The Quran says, this is the ultimate book, might as well not write any others. This book can never be altered, and it was perfect at the time it was created. Well, we know that's horseshit because there's
It's probably changed, right?
exactly. There's previous versions of the Quran that have tons of stuff in them that don't exist in the current one, and vice versa, right? So it's not the perfect book. It wasn't created, but it says, and it says you can never alter any of the precepts in this book. So the religion itself is bound by the fact that Muhammad is the last prophet. And so people like Bo Polney would be put to death for pretending to be a prophet from God when Muhammad was the last prophet. So, you're being disrespectful to their God by pretending to be a prophet from a God. So it's it's a screwy kind of a little world here we've got going. But all of these are all within the illusion of our common shared reality that we're creating. Now, we don't have to create a reality that is filled with illusion. We can create a reality that is very close to the actual paradigm. It's my thinking that a lot of these space aliens do exactly that they don't live in our delusionary common shared reality, that they actually live in a reality that they're co-creating with supreme consciousness that allows them to do things like Three-Eye Atlas and all of that. And so I think that they would be, it's my thinking that such aliens, such minds would be amenable to having discussions with us. I think they would be very wary of us. I think they'd be quite fascinated with another mind that is not theirs, that operates on a different paradigm.
But
And
can I just show? So I'm just influenced by the evidence. Like this is the Beyond UFOs book. This was the free study. They did a survey of like 4,350 experiences. So at least it's a big database. They had like 600 or 700 questions. And, about 80% had positive experience, like contact with ETs or other paranormal influence. So many, about 900 met the grace. So 80% had like psychological transformations or even physical healings. So they most of them had positive experiences, which goes against the lore in ufology. So I'm just going by the database. I'm just influenced by evidence,
Yeah, it's actually quite understandable. Okay, these people are having those experiences because Supreme Consciousness wants them to have that positive experience for whatever reason, right? So Supreme Consciousness uses us, all right, for its purposes. I know this, it's factual. You can see this if you track your own synchronicities in your own life long enough. You will see that you are sort of being presented with pathways as though there was a guiding direction in your life that's not necessarily 100% in your own mind.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way about my life. Yeah.
And you can actually get into conflict at times with those directions. You got a grumpy day or whatever, and you just, no, I don't want to do that. And you try and go off in another way. And it doesn't work. You'll always end up being brought back to where Supreme Consciousness wants you to be, right? So we could presume Supreme Consciousness favors us, but I don't take it that way, nor do I take it that it's particularly educating me or cares about me as an individual. I am Supreme Consciousness, so I do know that is the case, that at some level there is a companionship, I want you to do well. I want you, from Supreme Consciousness, saying to all humans, I want you to succeed. And it is not necessary that we suffer. From a Buddhist perspective, there's pain and there's suffering. Everybody has pain. You create your own suffering. Just as these people created their own experience, it was not external to them. All of the stuff that came up was only in their mind, because they were not talking with any other beings that had different words that could put in their mind. Any person saying that telepathy is part of the communication must understand that there is no word being put in their mind by that other being. What
It
is
seems to be a
happening,
hallmark, right? Telepathy with all
right?
the
And
ETs seems to
what
be a
is
hallmark.
happening is that that other being is putting energy into their mind, assuming it exists as a separate consciousness, and it is plucking out the words and moving them into the linguistic center of your brain where you decode words. So it doesn't have to actually put the word in your mind. It just finds the words you've got and brings them up there. Thus, of course, context, connotation, all of this kind of thing get all garbaged. And so I do assume that there are other consciousness that are discrete beings that have bodies that are co-creating just
Yeah,
like
like
us.
us, right? Yeah.
Right. And they're non-human intelligences. In fact, we live with at least one of those species on the planet down under the oceans. And we have for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years.
I
And we
think
have
I think
very
the
little.
reptilians, I think the negative one. The reptilians kind of running the globalists, running
No,
the
no.
world.
So we have to, okay, in my opinion, if you say reptilians, I'm going to say that's somebody's delusion. That's Carrie Cassidy spewing off about something she's never encountered, never in reality. It's all within her own mind. I've never seen reptilians. Nobody's ever seen reptilians. If they manifest into our common shared reality as a separate um, species, separate intelligence, we will see them out in the eternal now. Okay, they have to be there because there is only this eternal now, and where you and I live in the boundary of time and material is the end process of that state. So if you are a meditator and you do serious meditation, not this, contemplation and mantra shit, you clear your mind and you can look at the eternal now, and you will see them out there. And then you may indeed find that we're going to be seeing them in our manifest reality, right? But the manifest reality is the end part of the process of the eternal,
Yeah.
event stream.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And so anyway, so somebody saying, well, evil, blah, blah, blah. Nope, nope, sorry. I understand the demiurge. I understand the way the Gnosis, Gnostics understood it and so on. And that is still within the illusion. It's within the delusion. We're deluding ourselves with that understanding of what's going on, right? And this is a very powerful way to think, to have this particular paradigm. This paradigm will overtake our human social order over these next 10 or 15 years, and it'll be extremely violent. Okay. The paradigm itself will cause wars and strife and division, especially within Mohammedism and evangelical Christianity.
Yeah, I think it's hard for them to adjust to this paradigm, right?
They're gonna shoot
I
each
agree.
other. They're gonna just go batshit, right? But they have to understand that the reality that their reality tainted by their godheads, the delusion of these beings, separate beings that have balls and are walking around claiming to create the universe, that kind of thing. That illusion is not shared by these aliens. We got to get real. If we don't get real, they're going to destroy us all, right? We're so close to this, we may even be being destroyed now. Chemtrails wiping out fertility, vaccines, all of this stuff may not be at the result of the grand global Jewish conspiracy. It might be at the behest of whoever that conspiracy works for, and those beings might not be humans. And
Yeah,
they
I
might
wonder who those
have us
beings
gone.
are. Like maybe, but there is a negative force, and I think there's a positive force. Like in my hypothesis, I think there's good ETs trying to direct humanity, evolve humanity. Over the last few centuries to
That's
gradually.
insulting though, right?
Is it?
You're fucking ET telling me to evolve. Hey, fuck that. I'll
Okay.
deal with it on my own, guy.
Well,
I'm
we got like
human.
8 billion people with 8 billion intentions. I think.
That's what creates our common shared reality.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
now
you're
we're
the
gonna
expert
have
at that. You're the expert
right.
at
And so
that.
now we're gonna have ETs in there fucking with our common shared reality when we haven't got our shit together. I don't think so. And their interests are not our interests. Just because they want us to evolve a particular way doesn't mean it's good for us. Maybe they want to evolve us into death and extinction, and they're just being happy and nice about it.
Well, one theory is they're phasing out Homo sapiens sapiens for the next human, which would be telepathic, have quantum dimensional consciousness, like into higher
Yeah.
dimensions,
And
and
so,
also more spiritually oriented.
yeah,
That's
so
one
that's
theory.
bullshit. You're never going to
Is
get,
it?
so you can alter your awareness and you can pay more attention to your non-corporeal states, and that's what we call spirituality. But it's just an alteration in awareness. You don't make anybody more spiritual. You can't do
Okay.
things to our
Okay.
biology to make us more spiritual. You can't alter our consciousness in any way, shape, or form. Consciousness is inviolate. This was an
Okay.
understanding that we found in the. I had this understanding. It's been evolving for decades. I've died 3 times. That's affected this understanding. But myself and my old farts group find this understanding in these ancient hymns in Sanskrit and Avestan. And they talk in there about the factual matter of things if you get around the religious allegory approach to the language. And they do indeed say that they're the devas, the
Yeah,
uh,
I'm into the Buddhist Pali Devas. Yeah, but my
right.
my hypothesis is flexible. You could change my hypothesis because I'm uncertain. I really don't know the nature of reality. I'm just exploring,
Exactly.
trying to figure it out. I'm open.
So be my thing is be content with uncertainty,
Oh yeah.
harmonize with irreversibility. So you got people out there, especially the scientist types, they're starting to understand a little bit of this, and they say everything is happening constantly right now. Okay, that's true. The event stream is in this eternal now. But there is no other reality where I chose not to have this interview and we went off on our separate ways. Reality does not split that way. We live in a very finite, constrained, energetic universe
Yeah,
with,
I think that's true. People say there's
yeah,
many different Earths. Like that. No, no,
no, no, no,
no. I
it's a
don't
whole
believe
thing.
that. Like, how could that be? You know.
Right. There's also another thing there. There is a point to this materium. Okay, so the materium is the place where matter exists, where we think matter exists. Everything that's not material is not in the materium. Okay, universe created this materium. The Jews in their Kabbalistic stuff, as well as in the Talmud, they have this little bit there where they say God, not Yahweh, but the real God, scooped out his guts in order to make the universe and stuffed the universe inside him. That's their way of saying we're all made out of supreme consciousness. Okay, all right. So same thing with the Islamics. That's their understanding. But in so doing, this creation of our material world, we get into the understanding where our minds, we can't operate outside of our understanding, outside of our paradigm. So without that, so if you don't have a paradigm large enough so that you can look in and see that everything is in delusion, you're never going to know you're in a delusionary state. And so you'll take an understanding that the devas do exist, which they may as separate beings, but our understanding of them is entirely within our own minds, and all of that has been influenced by the experiences that we've gone through to this point, right?
Yeah, that
And
makes sense. Yeah, we're projecting on the Devas what we think they
exactly,
are. Yeah, we
exactly.
don't really know.
Right. Well, there's another thing there. We project because we're built with predictive mind. Okay, so you're playing baseball, you're playing cricket, you're playing soccer. And your mind can predict a millisecond or two before that other player moves, before the ball is thrown, and you actually know where that is going to go, and you feel it within you. If you're honest, you'll know you're going to miss that. You know you're going to strike out, right? Because you felt it an instant before you did that, or you felt it and you knew you were going to just get that thing and send it flying, right? We have predictive minds that work in the event stream slightly ahead of the
Yeah, that happens.
manifestations, right? That's where synchronicity comes from. We have a common shared reality because I can sync up my mind with Heidi, and we have a common experience of synchronicities coming to us both that the universe is putting out to us. I don't accept them as temporal at all. I get rid of all of this idea and understanding of time. But the fact that her mind and my mind can blend to the point that universe is talking to both of us simultaneously. And here's the reason it wants to do that. Its purpose is, in my opinion, it wants to know what will really happen. So the event stream and the pleroma is an abundant fullness of potential. It is the constant shifting. When you look at it and you see it, It's the constant shifting of all of this lights and stuff and connections and so on that keep coming down and putting more and more energy as they get closer to the event stream. And then they start becoming solid and matter. And then they start coming into our material universe, and your mind can affect them as they're coming there because you're projecting. Because your mind is projecting a template that you want them to filter through, and it will. So you have to understand how to do it. Jesus knew that the book of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary, very first line in Gospel of Mary is it's destroyed. The first 6 pages are not there. But the very first line in there is a fractional thing when the disciples ask Jesus. And they ask, and so will matter be destroyed or not? They were talking about manifestation. Jesus was teaching the disciples to manifest. That's why he was so dangerous. Got to get rid of that because, he was an Essene, okay? Jesus was not circumcised. He was an Essene. He was not a Jew. And the Essenes did not do that. So anyway, so this is our reality with the projections. Males project out on our reality. If you do it right, if you do it well, you don't get frustration. You get the universe responding to you because it's sort of a mirror and it wants to know what will happen if I give that bastard his desire. If I give Clif this woman, if I give contact that way, and if I give Heidi this man, Clif, what will happen? The universe knows the potential of everything that could happen, but it wants to know what will actually manifest. The reason it wants to do this is because universe had this thought. Supreme consciousness had this thought. And it's the beginning of what we call the Big Bang, the beginning of what I call the experiential. All right. And the thought was, is there something that could exist without me knowing about it ahead of time? Is there something that could exist without supreme consciousness, which is everything, knowing about it ahead of time? You're wrong. You know why you're wrong? Because the thought itself was novel.
Oh, so supreme consciousness didn't anticipate the thought?
And
Okay.
so wanted to see if it could manifest. In other words, supreme consciousness thought about itself and thought about something outside of itself. Humans never do that. We can't, it's not in our normal way of thinking at all. And so this started off our experiential universe. And this is what they say in Avestan as well. When they talk about Brahma sleeps, we're all dreamed into existence. When Brahma wakes, we all flutter off, and then he turns and goes back to sleep and dreams a new universe into existence. Now, the idea of the soul, that's factual. It's an energetic vehicle. You can get to the point where you lose your soul. It's not the way people think. It can't be stolen, can't be harmed or any of that kind of shit. It's an energetic container. But you can, should you desire, universe will allow you to succeed in not existing anymore.
How do you feel about the law of karma with the soul? Like good deeds, how they affect your next life, or bad
No,
deeds?
deeds. Let's not put our understanding of good and bad on them, right? Destiny is destiny. No, you don't ever step foot in the same river twice, But yeah, the whole thing about the good and the bad aspect of it, we taint everything with our understanding because we don't acknowledge that we exist within the illusion. This is going to get us into severe trouble with the aliens.
But even with the illusion, like even if it's all illusion, if a person has good deeds and bad deeds, wouldn't they go to a nicer part of the illusion or a worse part of the illusion? But
No, the nicer or worse part are entirely within your head. You're creating the illusion. You're participating in it.
well, I think that's true, but doesn't karma affect that? Like, isn't
No,
there is
no.
there meaning to a person's
The
action?
law of karma is basically for every action, there is a reaction. All right. The good or bad is how you interpret it. Pain or suffering is in your mind. I have pain, but I don't have suffering, right?
Yeah, but do you think there's consequences to people's actions in this
Oh,
life?
there's always consequences because they follow on, right? But they're not good or bad. There's no one up there judging you. There's no supreme consciousness judging you. It
Yeah, there's
doesn't
no one
care what
judging
you
you.
do. It doesn't care what you do. It wants you to do something, though, to see what
Yeah.
can, right?
I think it was just a natural law like gravity. Karma just happens. There's no agency there.
Correct, correct. It is actually, it's part of the event stream. So karma can be thought of as the ripple ahead effects of our projection onto the event stream, attempting to get something to manifest. All right. And so if you want to manifest something and you want to be rich and you're stupid and you manifest a great scam like Corey Goode and David Wilcock. Well, the karmic repercussions are there because of the nature of what you did was against the common shared reality. You're not
Yeah.
harmonious with all of that, right? You're attempting to alter the event stream in a way that is prejudicial to you and negatively prejudicial to other people. All
Yeah,
right.
I think the effects of lying are very severe. Lying to thousands of people
Okay.
is really
All right. So
severe.
here's part of that. Jesus in the book of Thomas is questioned by the disciples. Shall we fast? Shall we do all of these rituals? Shall we blah blah blah? And Jesus said, "Nah, don't screw with any of that. We don't that doesn't alter your spirituality or anything at all. But don't lie. Don't do what you hate. Why? Because they affect your emotions. Your emotions affect your ability to project out into the event stream. And that's where you cause the negative impact because you're projecting with negative emotions into the event stream and attempting to get something to happen. The universe is going to respond to you. It's
They're
going to give you
lying.
those negative emotions back within whatever it produces. Thus, Corey Goode is and David Wilcock are in the shitter, right?
And also Tony Rodriguez, they're lying. It's severe. They're lying.
All of these experiencers, and that's fine. Okay, you had that experience. It's not meaningful. You didn't actually talk to any fucking alien, right? You just said that you contacted a blue space chicken
Well, they're
because it
making it
popped in your
up.
head. No,
Yeah.
they're not making it up necessarily, right? Because their minds are so okay. Yes, they are, but their conscious mind may not be aware that they're making it up.
Maybe,
I actually think David Wilcock thinks he's talking to the Archangel Michael. Now, angels, in my understanding, are the Elohim that were used as messengers, right? There's still these, evil space alien fuckers that have their own interest at heart that abuse the Judeans for thousands of years and all of this, and they ate humans and, consumed small children and all of these kind of things. So the angels and the demons are just two different words for the same being. But I actually think that he thinks he talked to one, right?
you might
So,
believe that. Yeah.
yeah, right. And so you can tell when someone's 100% bullshitting themselves and then telling you that, or whether they're telling you something that they actually think occurred to them. And so that's fine. I never discriminate against people thinking that had happened to them because I've taken lots of psychedelic drugs and I've seen some weird damn stuff, and it has altered my ability to understand our universe and our reality. So I actually, Corey Goode sued me. I did something stupid. I hired an attorney. It cost me $33,000. I fired him when I discovered he'd hired two other attorneys and it was going to turn into a shit show. And then I went and did it on my own, pro se. I was the only one to get out of that very complex lawsuit because I came up with a mechanism of disputing their jurisdiction. That is the federal court in Colorado. I disputed their jurisdiction over me without surrendering to it. Very tricky thing to do. And it worked. And I got out. My motion to dismiss.
Good you got out.
Right. Right. I got out in 2021. It only cost me the $33,000. It's not worth me suing that
That's a
stupid
shame.
fucker to try and get the money back. Who cares? Because that's in the past. If I want money, I manifest it. Okay. So I can manifest. I'm repairing my body. I'm getting healthy again. I was 128 pounds. I'm 182 and I'm getting my muscles back, right? And all of this. And in that process, I came up with this product that aided my sleep. And so I turned it into a product. I put it out to the event stream. I found partners in the form of Pure Bulk. And now we have Clif High's Pure Sleep that you can buy. And that as a product, that started another income
Yeah,
stream.
tell people where they can get it and where can they find you online? Tell the audience that.
You can find me on Substack and I'm on X, right? Sometimes if I can't get on Substack, I'll post directly on Rumble, but I'm not on YouTube. Anything on YouTube is a ripoff. They kicked me off in 2020 when I said don't take the vax, and they have yet to restore my account. And I don't bother. I don't care about them. So
Well, maybe
basically,
you could try. Maybe they'll be more open
nah, I
then.
don't. It's like to hell with them. Who cares, right? I'm not after money or anything, so it doesn't matter to me, right? I say this stuff. I do this stuff for um, my own purposes that are driven by universe. Once it's out of my head, I don't care. If you're supposed to encounter it, you'll encounter it. It's not my worry. It's nice. It's freeing. I don't have to worry about it, right? I'm not selling anything that way. If I need to make money, I'll come up with another product. I wrote
Okay.
a commentary on the Book of Thomas, and it's out on Amazon. There's a free copy on Substack. You can read the 114 legitimate sayings of the living Jesus, all going to the art and science of manifestation. And I wrote commentary on it, and it's free at Substack/Clif_High. And so, you can get a free copy and read it. If you want a hard copy, you can go buy it off Amazon.
Okay. I want to ask, one of my guests said there's a Jewish prediction that 2026 will begin an era of peace. Have you heard that? Is that possible?
Pax Judaica, right? Okay, and so this comes from um, the Freemasons. This comes from the Albert Pike era in the 1800s. It comes from they cite specific references within the Talmud, and it is Pax Judaica, the global peace when the Jews rule everybody. And where all males are circumcised, there's no longer any Mohammedism, there's no longer any Christianity, and everybody's just a servant to the Jews. That's Pax Judaica. And if you go and read into it, you see that Albert Pike wanted that. There were going to be the 3 world wars, and then the Jews would take over and we'd have world peace as slaves of the Jews.
So it doesn't seem like 2026 is going to be an era of peace then, if that's what they
No, no,
want.
no. In my opinion, because of my data and all of my research and stuff, 2026 is a year of chaos. We have not even started the chaos. In my opinion, we will have some emotional peaking of the chaos in late July, early August, but it'll still continue all year. 2027 will be as bad in a different way. In my way of understanding, 2026 is chaos, and in chaos, there's going to be the emergence of the new world starting to poke up through it. All right, new inventions, new ways of doing things. The United States takes over Greenland. Okay, this kind of thing. Major things happening. 2027 will be a whole lot more of that as the new stuff that's coming in this year solidifies, and there'll be less chaos. Okay, and then 2028, everything gets real serious. There will be threats of global extinction in 2029 due to Apophis, the meteor. There will
And a
be
meteor's coming, you mean?
2029, right, right.
Wow.
It'll hit Earth or not. I don't think it will, because I think we'll use our manifestation ability and it won't. But right at the moment, the scientists, the academics, the gritologists, those people that think that, slam 2 atoms together and you can get life, those idiots can't say how close it's going to come. They can't. The margin of error is greater than the distance it's supposed to miss Earth by. Okay, so it could smack into us. But that's just one of the things. 2028 is also going to be the outbreak of the contention. Okay, so in 2027, if you're paying attention, 2026 even, if you're paying attention, there will be visible contention between governments and non-human intelligences. And eventually, by 2028, I think the governments will have to come clean and have to discuss with the populace the new paradigm, space aliens, and what the fuck's going on.
The non-human intelligence. Yeah, we see that kind of ramping up now, congressional hearings and stuff. It's good to
Right,
see.
that's okay, and so that's not ramping up. That's a trailing on propaganda thing. Okay, so you don't pay attention at all to Congress if you want to know what's going to come to us, right? Because they only deal with the manifestation at the very last part of it.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but it's true. We're going to be dealing with the space aliens living under the ocean who may or may not be
Yeah, I think
involved
there's
with.
undersea bases. I'm convinced.
Right,
Like
exactly.
Catalina Island off the coast of California seems
Oh,
to have
there's
an
a
undersea
there's a
base.
giant base out in the middle of the Pacific, so deep we can't send subs down there.
Yeah, like
Right. Well, we can send subs down there, but we can't do anything down there, right?
like Sissy
And
Hanson's an experiencer. She's actually been there. She's been to this undersea base in the South Pacific. She's had experiences all over her life, but she records being there with ETs.
okay, but not in her physical form. Her body never went there.
Yeah, well, she's been taking an astral body sometimes and some
Mhm.
trips.
I
Or,
dispute that. I wouldn't buy that a bit.
well,
It's like,
how is it? Just
I
consciousness?
would say that yes, I understand that that's what you think, and but I do not um, accept that your body physically moved. Okay, there's a lot of you have to understand how our material reality is constructed. So 22 trillion times a second, 22 trillion times a second, we flash in and out of existence. All of reality is created and destroyed 22 trillion times a second. This allows us the in our illusion, the idea of movement, right? It's just like on a movie film, it's little segments. When it does that, it destroys our body completely. That's the end process. So Einstein was 100% wrong. Okay. Quantum mechanics is 100% wrong. Everything arises from consciousness. Matter is energy crystallized, and you're never going to get energy back out of matter.
Yeah, everything
Uh,
arises from consciousness. I agree.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so she had a conscious experience of exploring this underseas thing with entities that were formed within her own mind. Okay, so there's no indications whatsoever that any of the things that happened in her mind exist in the common shared reality. It's in
But you're
her
saying there is a
mind.
base though in the Pacific, right?
There's a base, they can analyze it and all of this kind of stuff, but there's many bases down there, right? We can see these, some of them on Google Earth.
Yeah,
And
I mean, yeah, many
our
bases.
military is reacting to these. So there are factual things down there. But just because there's a factual base down there does not mean that any alien is going to come up and snatch her ass and put her in that base for any purpose whatsoever. And especially if she starts putting in emotional qualifiers like, I was supposed to see this, or this is the kind of Corey Good stuff, I'm the great ambassador to the intergalactic kind of
Oh
shit.
no,
Right?
she
I'm
doesn't act like she's not a Corey Good at all.
No,
No.
no, no, no. But nonetheless, if you read the language, you'll see that very subtly, you'll see within her language a bit of ego aggrandizement about her interaction with the space aliens. So
I guess I just go by thousands of people report like contact with the Greys. Like typically there's three in their bedroom. They report a similar series of
okay, so that's
experiences.
within their mind. So millions of humans have a linguistic center in their minds. So because a human has a linguistic center and words arise, does not mean that the words are separate things that would could be picked up by somebody else and examined. So yes, all of these people have similar experiences. That's not meaningful because
Oh,
they're all having a human experience and they're all having a common human experience. So if millions or if thousands of people run on up and smash their toe into a rock and they all experience pain, that pain is within the human range of the experience of smashing your foot into a rock. Okay, the rock didn't do anything. The rock is not there being evil. The rock is in no way an active participant in that. All of this is arising in your own mind. It will arise in your own mind in specific ways. So anybody that runs on up there and smashes their foot into that rock and says, I see petunias, I see dahlias, right? That's outside of the normal range of the human experience. And so their language might have something that you want to pay attention to for many different reasons. But everybody else is within that normal range of the experience. So in my work, I discovered that back in the 90s, I discovered that people leaked out conscious understanding or unconscious understanding of prescient information at least milliseconds ahead of something materializing, but maybe years and years and years and years ahead of it. As we
that's very
discovered,
fascinating. I want to hear more about how you figured this out
I
and
was
how
in
you
an
do the
airplane.
predictive
Okay,
programming. This is fascinating.
so I was a programmer. I worked for Microsoft, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, British Airlines, British Telecom, Intelco, AT&T, all of these kind of techie guys, right? My forte was large databases and analysis and uh, tight, cohesive code. So I wrote lots of code. I coded in assembly language in C, C++, Lisp. I didn't like Python or any of the interpreted languages, but I did like Prolog, programming and logic. Nonetheless, so I'm a programmer. I had a job under contract at La UNAM, largest university in the American hemisphere in Mexico City. And so I was flying from SeaTac in Seattle down to Mexico City. 8-hour flight. It's long. I deliberately take the night flights. And I was in a 747. We'd crossed over the border. We were heading into where maybe if it hadn't been night, we would have been able to see the volcano or something. So we were that close to Mexico City, right? And I'm sitting in there. The plane is reasonably well populated. Some people are talking. A lot of people are asleep. And it's mainly like a business class, right? I'm in my suit and everything because I got to get out and, it's going to be the middle of the night, but I got to meet my clients for the first time and introduce and all of that sort of thing. So I'm sitting there. All of a sudden, every hair on my body stands up, and I have this impression. And then instantly, the plane is struck by lightning. Oh, right? Everybody freaks out. But I noticed that when every hair on my body stood up, and I had this impression of something about to hit us, and a sense of impending, I noticed that all these people around me, especially these three women that were up ahead of me in the aisle on the other side, everybody stopped talking because there was a little buzz. And so all of the people knew that lightning was going to hit within
They
milliseconds.
felt it too. Wow.
Right. Okay, so we felt that ahead of its manifestation. And I knew about the event stream. I'd been, exploring all of this for years. And so I really started thinking about it. And then less than like 4 minutes later, I got another one of those sensations. Because I was actively looking in my mind for this and feeling it, I got another one of those sensations. And I instantly looked around at all the people. And I saw the three women up there, and they actually froze in mid-gesture and waited. And then boom, it hit us again. So there were the two lightning strikes, and that's how I came up with the idea of the prescient language. Because I was thinking about all of the language that these people had been talking about ahead of those. And so people knew 5 minutes on, ahead of us getting struck by lightning, because I was listening. I was by myself. I was in the middle aisle. I'm nice and ensconced back in the dark, and I'm just listening to what's going on, right?
Relax. So is it in their language, you think, what they say?
No, I think that, okay, so we can project into the event stream or we can receive. Okay, so we receive from the event stream. We know when that pitcher is going to throw. And you say, oh, well, I knew because the little muscles on his eyes twitched, right? That's your mind pegging your knowledge to physical reality, but you knew ahead of that physical reality. And so this foreknowledge is we can project it, but we can receive it as well. And so because we're sensors, right? We're antennae. Your vagus nervous system, the 10th cranial nerve, is the largest nerve in your body. And if you were to spread it out, the average person might be 300 square feet. It might cover, right? All spread out. So it's a massive dipole antenna, works both ways, projects and receives. So these people do receive sensation. So the woman that went to the bottom of the ocean, right, went to the base. If we think about her mental process that could occur for that, there's all kinds of things that could have been happening to her as a receiver, because women are very good receivers, right? Telepathy, synchronicities, women receive, that's their goal. Men project, that's our role. And so she could have been receiving stuff from the universe that then was interpreted in her mind into that experience. This is my understanding. So, Corey Good has his bullshit experiences. Other people like Randy Travis have real experiences, right? And that he had that real experience, that real interaction, however much of it is formed in his head. And you get a different kind of an understanding from this. So people that go out and write books and stuff about their experiences, it's like, no, that's 100%. In my opinion, that's a tell that it's not factual, it's not material, it's not corporeal, it's entirely in the illusion.
But I guess they're being honest. They're being honest about their experience, though.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying they're lying in any way, shape, or form. That's their understanding, And I would stand up in court and say, I understand that they believe that, right? That they're not lying. Now, with Corey Good, I would stand up in court and say, no, he's a lying fucker.
Yeah, I made a blog and video saying that this lying, what they're doing with Gaia TV, it's
just
crossword disclosure. It's really bad. It's really bad to do that to thousands.
CIA paid for all of that.
Oh, really? For disinfo, I guess. So maybe they think they're doing a noble job for
No,
this
no, no.
info.
So 2 years before that, a powerhouse, two or several powerhouses, Catherine Austin Fitts, Richard Dolan, dark journalist.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I watched them all. Yeah.
yeah, they have their conference on the real secret space program and all the $21 trillion that were stolen. They were investigating it from a forensic accounting basis, blah, 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 right? And they were being very successful. They were going to have a third conference. And the second conference, Corey Goode showed up and his handlers at Gaia, including Jay Widener, tried to force Corey Goode in on those in that conference.
So this is the CIA trying to muddy the waters, you mean?
Trying to stop that because the CIA is the one that stole the 21 trillion and they run all of the black projects. They're 100% in charge of all of, or they're not. Okay, so there's a lot of those projects that have broken away from their control, but they're nominally the ones that started them all.
So you think there is, though, a genuine secret space program? Probably. No?
Not the way the cartoon guys have. There's no super soldiers. There's none of that shit.
Oh, no. I mean, like Richard Dolan was saying, a breakaway civilization.
Oh, sure. Okay, now that's legit. Okay,
Yeah,
there's
that's what I
people
mean.
out there that are like myself, that are technicians, that are working in the event stream, that have created devices that do some really cool shit, right? But there's no spider beams from Mars. Mark
No.
Richards is a prisoner.
I'm trying to
who's
separate the
freaking-
real one. Talk about the real
exactly
one.
from all this fantasy shit, right?
Like, do you think since the 1950s they may have back engineered UFOs, have alien reproduction? I did a video with Grant Camerles, and he said, well, maybe not. So now I'm not certain about that.
Okay, so maybe they didn't do that. Maybe it was indeed T. Townsend Brown in 1954, on his own human ingenuity, discovered electrogravitics and the way to control gravity. Okay, so we don't know. We know that there's been other people that were very close to that success, including the Nazi Bell. So this is technology that has been going on for some time. Now, the Brill Society, they brought all that shit out of their head, but they're not talking to any space aliens in Azerbaijan or wherever, right? It was just that's how their minds interpreted what they were getting out of supreme consciousness. And they wrote it down, and it sort of worked for them, and they had to, kludge around all of the garbage in it. So, so in this sense, it's like, all of the fantasiists and or everybody except for the Richard Dolan hard science kind of guys are in some way involved in the fantasy of the delusion. And so
I'm working with Grant Cameron here. He's moved to the Vancouver area with the idea that consciousness is fundamental to the universe, or that idea.
Well, I don't say it's fundamental. I say consciousness is the universe, and we live in an illusion. We live in the illusion. If you say it the way I do, then you understand the grit doesn't matter. It's all illusionary, and it's a good analytical tool.
Yeah, I would go along with that.
Language matters, right? Yeah. Here's the thing about that too. So people will say that, oh, I had this encounter, I had this experience with these aliens, and they may have some justification for that. But what they don't take into account is this idea of context. Okay, so human bodies have emotion. We have emotion in the hippocampus, in the brains and stuff. No reason that a space alien has to have emotion, as we understand it, and that's going to radically change our language and our contextual and our use of language.
But they might, like, people have reported them having wholesome emotions and having relationships over a period of years.
But those are people that are having experiences within their own mind, and they don't have an objective space alien standing right there that you can dissect their body to see if they've got the emotions, et cetera, right? That's their interpretation of their interaction. That's not our objective reality. We have a common shared reality. Corey Goode is out there spewing shit. David Wilcock, Terry Cassidy, they're spewing shit into the common shared reality. That's why our common shared reality is also goofy. There is an objective material reality, but you need to understand that that's on its way out. It's fading. It's the last part of the process.
This is interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, and so this is how I'm able to recover my body. Okay, so I died 3 times. This last time was from colon cancer. It was undiagnosed. I had suffered it for over 35 years. Been going to doctors, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to find it for over 35 years. I had altered my diet where I was a vegetarian. I was even a vegan for 4 years because of the colon cancer. So I die of it in 2018. I am 128.2 pounds. Okay, I can't stand on my feet for more than 3 hours a day. I have to wrap up in tons of stuff just to be able to maintain body heat. I had died. There was no reason for me to come back. My body was wasted. My greater self, my greater self within consciousness, within supreme consciousness, at the point of my death, presented in my mind reasons for me to return. Okay, and so it's all illusionary. It's all within the delusion. Within that delusion, I was offered meaningful work, and they zapped my body. I'm floating up in the ceiling while all this is going on, right?
Wow.
My consciousness is aware. Somehow I'm seeing without eyes because my eyes are in the body. Somehow I'm hearing without ears because my ears are in the body and I'm not in the body anymore. So they zap me. I go back to the body and say, no, no, I got to get out because the body's wasted. It's corroded. I'd been a martial artist for since I was 10, right? So I wanted a decent body. I was not going to go back to life in that corpse. And so I die. They said, you got meaningful work. Go back. And they zapped me. I go back. And I said, no, fuck it. I've been working all my life. I'm tired. And then I go back up to my greater self, and it says, here you go. You got to go back. You got to go back. You will have a chance to die in a great global battle. That was the language that appeared in my head. Bear in mind, it's pulling these words and context out of my
Great
mind.
global battle?
Great global battle, right?
Wow.
And I'm a martial artist, right? And a serious one. I got swords, weapons, all this kind of shit. And I thought, that's kind of attractive, right? Going out and demonstrate my skill. And even though I know I'm going to die, it's like, what a way to go, right? So I sort of thought about it. It's zap me in my body and come on back. And then instantly I'm in my body, filled with pain. Now, bear in mind that the minute I die, no pain, comfort, even a sense of warmth, right? Even though I don't have a body to perceive warmth, nonetheless, I'm feeling warm and comforted. Just watching it all, I don't give a shit, I'm fine. Anyway, so then I go back to my body. It's like, it's gross. It's terribly gross. The pain, all of this kind of stuff, coming back into matter. Ugh. And anyway, so I reject it and I leave the body again and I think, I'm done with it. And then they have to forgive me here because I'm an emotional old man.
Yeah, it's an emotional experience to relive. Yeah.
Yeah. And they offered me love. Okay. So my greater self said, go back. You have to. And you're not done with the effort in this body's life, but you will have a chance to know love in your last years. And so I said, okay, and I went back. And, I'd been in love with this woman for years and never said anything because of my circumstances and stuff. And well, I came back, I said something and things changed, right? And but I
Good.
was 128 pounds. This is in 2018, and I did not want to present her with that form. So I set about repairing my body, and it's been tedious, painful, irritating, consuming process. And
Was the
I'm
cancer
successful.
cured? Did it have a remission?
No, 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 no. I fired the oncologist. I had stage 4 cancer without any metastasization, so they called it stage 2. It was a cancer that a mass that was as big as my palm and an inch and a half thick. Okay, so it totally blocked my intestines and colon, and I lost feet of internal stuff they had to cut out. And so my functioning isn't very good, right? And so I've rebuilt this body without much of my intestines, and that's been quite the task because you got to, in order to do bodybuilding. So I'm 182 something now, right? So I have added 50 plus pounds in these years, and so I've had to absorb a lot of material, even though I didn't have the stuff in there. So I'm using manifestation to aid my body rebuilding, and it's going along very well. My abs are back. I'm getting my muscles back, so I'm doing good. It's a process where you understand that the body is not the beginning of it; it's the end. And so you reach out into the event stream and you start causing the event stream to form in a co-creative process. And then you provide the body the support that it needs, the other matter that it's going to use to put together, right? And it would have been great if I hadn't had the gut damage. I could have repaired in a couple of years. As it was, I had to go to the lengths of doing things like inventing entire new tonics and mechanisms for body repair, like my Pure Sleep. I'm going to be bringing out some of these others here pretty quick.
So that helps
But
others. Maybe that's part of your mission
exactly,
coming
exactly,
back. Yeah.
right. And so, there's an equal and opposite action always. The universe mirrors. So it's in my own interest. Even if I were, self-serving and evil and just after money, it's still in my own interest to offer something that aids other people, right? Um, so so that's why I don't concern myself with the money I lost on the attorney dealing with Corey Good. The universe provides. Why should I try and recover old stuff, right? So it just provides. I create new stuff and new stuff come on in. Um, Anyway, so this understanding, my understanding, I believe to be superior than that of the gritologist world, right? I could never have recovered if I'd been in the hands of the oncologists and the other doctors that they passed me on to after the cancer surgery. The reason I did not have metastasization, in my opinion, was because I had been taking a whole range of supplements for years, even while I had the cancer, attempting to find out what was wrong with my body, right? Attempting to correct it. And a couple of those supplements were functional mushrooms, chaga mushrooms specifically, which is hugely anti-cancerous and will actually corrode cancer tumors if you have enough exposure, and C60, right? Carbon 60, which is a mitochondria boosting material here, right? And it's a Buckminster fullerenes, and they can recycle in your body, and they're very good for. I think they recycle 250 times, repairing mitochondria or something like this before they're flushed out. So it's a very good for the process of rebuilding the body. I haven't done stem cells or any of that. I have not had a cancer cell. Show up in any of the tests since 2019. And this was after I fired the oncologist. I kept doing the tests on my own. I just basically took over as my own physician after that, right?
Yeah, there's alternate treatments for cancer that mainstream medicine doesn't discuss. I know.
Well, they don't want you to know about them because they make money on you dying. That's all. But I looked at my surgeon was a terrible fellow, left me with all kinds of damage. This is in a podunk hospital at the far edge of Washington State, very poor resources. So, I was lucky I survived it all. And the oncologist was an idiot, and I couldn't stand him. I had one meeting with him, and no, I'm not coming back to talk to you. Mostly every question I asked him, he said, I don't know. It's like, well, I'm going to go find out, and you don't know. I'm not going to tell you, you know.
Yeah. So did you find love? They promised you love. Did
I
you
have
work out
I
better?
have Heidi I have Heidi
Good.
Benden. Yes, indeed. Yes.
Very
So
good.
okay. So here's the problem with that. Okay. So this is the way this tricky universe works. And Heidi thinks that that oh, this all cool and stuff. There's that relationship is its own level of interesting synchronicities and things. But so they promised me meaningful work, right? 2018, I come out 2019, I become aware of COVID. In the summer of 2019, they released it in the military games in China in order to spread it around the world, just the way they did the spreading of the 1918 influenza virus, the Spanish flu, through the military, right? They inoculated all these people. Vaccines are evil. Vaccines cause you problems. There is no good vaccine. Anyway, though, so I become aware of COVID. I start reacting in early fall of 2019. By 2020, my YouTube channel out there is me out there spewing, don't take their vaccine. It's a big scam, blah, blah, blah. All this shit's going on. But I didn't know if they'd actually created a deadly virus, if it would actually spread, right? They could have, in my opinion. But now I understand that that's not possible. Within the event stream, there can never be a human species killing biological weapon. It just
Well,
won't
that's
happen.
good. That's
It'll
good.
never ever happen. I mean, the way that this reality works. In any event, though, so they kicked me off YouTube for saying, this kind of thing, right? But I had meaningful work. I still get emails from people saying, you saved my life. I didn't take the shots. this kind of thing. And since then, I've also aided lots of people that have taken the shots. And because of my knowledge, trying to rebuild my own body, I am a very adept, I won't claim mastery, but I'm a very adept herbologist and physician at that level, right? And so I've aided a lot of people. A lot of people have recovered from cancer because of what I put out there on the Substack, et cetera, et cetera. Again, karma, right? The universe gave me Heidi.
Good karma. You're helping others. Yeah.
Right. I figured that I've got to put it back out there. So, I reflect back to universe as it reflects to me. So I do that. And so I've had meaningful work. It doesn't get any more meaningful than keeping people from taking that damn shot.
So the promise was fulfilled then that they gave
Right.
you.
Okay. And then the third promise was Heidi. All right. That's also been fulfilled. But what's left hanging? The great global battle.
Wow. So
will it happen? Will it happen? I have to assume that it will. That's why I train every day. I practice armed defense every day. I work out 45 to 50 minutes a day, building my body, doing my training, and so on, because I am assuming it will happen because the other two have.
But what does that mean, a great global battle? If you're living in the United States of Washington. Yeah.
No. So here's the thing. It's bear in mind that none of these words come from anywhere else except in my brain. Okay, so my greater self pulled specific language out of my brain to form a context. That context, when it was told to me right then in that surgery room, it was a great global battle, and I saw myself in sort of a way fighting in active contention with non-humans. Okay, so that is now. There's all kinds of nuance, but there's also all kinds of stuff we normally miss in our language. This is what I was going to with context. Space alien shows up, and you say, "Hi, I'm happy to meet you," and it says, "Hi, I'm happy to meet you too." Only its happy has to do with it having an emotion of hunger, and it's going to eat you. Right? So you both are happy, but your contexts are entirely different, right? So my context of a great global battle could be those words in order that I get the idea of contention, which I've studied all my life, studying Aikido, which is the art of peace. Okay, it's all about how to deal with contention in all forms. And so maybe those words were chosen to get me to understand that humanity is going to be actively in contention openly with non-human intelligences, and I'm going to be needed for that because I don't think like these buttheads in officialdom. I'm not a gritologist, right? I won't make all of these assumptions about the aliens that we shouldn't put on them. I'm not going to assume any alien I meet has any emotions whatsoever until we discuss their biology and my biology and stuff. I did that in hyperspace. Okay, so in hyperspace, I met the mantis. Okay, so Joe Rogan and these kind of people, they talk about taking DMT trips and blasting through hyperspace because it flushes out of your body so quick. Maybe you're there 10 minutes or so. Mescaline and psilocybin affect your brain, and they produce DMT, and they can, if you take sufficient quantities, what are known as shamanic level, you can get to hyperspace, okay? But you're not there the way that it is with DMT. It's not a cannonball blowing through hyperspace and then you pop out of it 10 minutes later. It is perhaps 12 hours, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out over the course of 12 hours. You get exhausted, you sweat. It's quite disgusting at a physical level, but it is so amazing at a metaphysical level, right? Because the physical stuff is involved because you're tripping on a physical substance. All right, so I met another being there. I can describe him, it doesn't matter. His consciousness was there, and he was happy to introduce himself to me and to educate me over the course of many months.
Well, what did he look like? Can you describe him?
It doesn't. Okay, I will describe it, but it doesn't matter because
I was curious. Anyways,
okay. So he had a flat forehead and a reasonably flat head. He was bilaterally symmetrical, like a human. Okay, had big hands and extremely delicate fingers, and was hairless, and had a like a cream color kind of a skin that gave the impression of iridescence, okay, like the sheen off of a oil on water. Now, when he became energetic, that iridescence would lift up off of his skin and hover there. And so he told me about his society as I told him about mine. He told me about hyperspace. He pointed out these other beings that were watching us in hyperspace, and he pointed out that those beings were in hyperspace by way of technology, not by way of drugs. He was there by way of drugs and his specific biology, the way I was there by the way of drugs and specific biology. But these beings that were lurkers were an intelligence that was using a machine to get there. They couldn't interact, but they could watch. And he told me all kinds of things about his social worker, that they have emotion, they don't have clothing, because their emotion shows as colors all around their body, sort of an aura. They have clothing, but it's not intended to protect them from the elements because their place was so pleasant to live in, right? Even temperatures, et cetera, et cetera. He was there. Okay, hyperspace is the place you go to trade knowledge. Okay, that's where you go to get educated. It's like the ultimate galactic college. Okay, and you go there and you swap knowledge with people and you trade. So he and I traded. He had to introduce me to the idea that I had to trade. He would tell me so much, and then he would say, "Give me something." Basically, I would go there. I'd do trips on mescaline and mushrooms, and he wouldn't be there sometimes. So, the conditions within my mind were not such that I would be able to connect with it, with hyperspace and or with him. Sometimes I'd get to hyperspace and he wouldn't be there. But there were several times that he was there and we interacted. And he had told me what the nature of his problem was on their planet. Their planet had recently developed wind and air movements at a dangerous level. Their planet was starting to develop what we would think of as weather. And their buildings and their social order was not structured to deal with it at all. And so I got across to him the idea of a sacrificial layer, paint. Put paint on your buildings to get worn off by the winds and not destroy the building. Put clothing on in order to protect. So they didn't have the idea of sacrificial layers, right? And so he was very thankful. And so he gave me information that I later on in the 90s and the 2000s converted into my understanding of large language model and prescient language, because it was his descriptions of how they operate, because their emotion, you can think of it this way, because their emotion is within their body but actually externalizes, they have a process of feeling that emotion externalize. So they know when their predictive mind is being active because they actually literally see it come out of their body in a form of a shimmery color kind of a thing, right? And so he was able to direct me to areas within our brain. And then later on, I found out that the Elohim had been seeking humans in the Judaics to run their machinery. And they were also seeking humans who had very powerful parts of their brain, the same way that this fellow in hyperspace. No, there's no name or anything. We didn't use words. We're trying to get it across in thought, in telepathy, trying to find something in his mind to pull up that I understand the context, it would be meaningful, et cetera, right? So, but he did give me the understanding that led me to write the code to be able to aggregate the prescient language that predicted Bitcoin, all of this other stuff, and the coronavirus and all this stuff we're living
Wow,
through
amazing
now.
where you get your source from. That's
Yeah,
origination. Wow.
yeah. Yeah, even the $600 silver, even the silver crisis was predicted back in the year 2000 when I ran that very first large report. Those were huge. Those were tedious beyond understanding. I was always constantly fighting degrading hardware and all this kind of stuff. I was, financing it on my own. I'm not incredibly rich at that stage or anything. So it was, make it work and then go rush off, do some programming for somebody else, come back and work on my stuff and so on for a couple of decades. And then I converted over full time.
Okay, so finish the story with this being. That's amazing.
Well, I mean, that was basically the end of it was, okay, so there was one really phenomenal experience where we were, uh, okay, so he had a body. I was a sphere. In hyperspace, I was just a sphere floating around. The sphere is the
Like an
most
orb,
efficient.
right? We call them orbs
An orb,
now.
exactly. And
Orb, yeah.
I was an orb. I was just floating around looking at shit, and he got across to me, well, this is kind of rude. Well, what do you mean? And he says, well, you should have a body. And I said, well, how do I do that? And he says, you extrude it. Take your orb and make it in the shape of your body. And I was able to do that. I was able to give myself arms and all of this stuff in hyperspace. It was like huge, staggering level of understanding that came across in that. And then he and I used our co-creative abilities to alter hyperspace. Now remember, every single fucking molecule is shouting at you, trying to demand your attention. Every part of your body that you just put out there is trying to send you signals and shit to destroy your concentration and all of this. Probably the only reason I was able to do any of this at that level was that I'd had decades of Zazen meditation, and I'm very good at focusing my mind, right? Even through all of the clutter. Anyway, though, so this being, whatever the hell he called himself, and myself co-created a space for us to be together, this sort of the same way that the mantid had created a laboratory and pushed everybody else out. He didn't have sparkly air molecules trying to talk to me in his lab, right? It was actually kind of peaceful when I popped in. And then he threw me out. It's like the chaos of hyperspace blew me away, blew me back to my body. I came back, I was irritated, and I jumped back into the mantid's lab, and he got really pissed I could come back. And then he collapsed the lab when he couldn't throw me out, and he left. I was just left there in hyperspace. Anyway, though, I'm sitting with a guy, the flat-headed fellow with the floaty emotions, and he convinces me, let's create a space. And between the two of us, a common shared reality emerged that was a river, a bed for a river. There was sort of ground. Now, bear in mind, the ground is trying to talk to me. The rocks in the river are trying to talk to me. There's no water, and we're lying there next to it, reclined, having a conversation like on a summer next to a stream, right? If we'd had cigars, we would have lit up, right? Anyway, he points out to me, he says, look at the river. And I looked at the riverbed. And then when he did that, I saw all of these little crystals slowly tumbling, very multicolored, different shapes, slowly moving themselves down the river as though they were being moved by water, but there's no water there. And he says, that's your understanding of time. I can see that in your brain. And then I grasped it, right? Time was the sequence of the movements. There was not an external time. There is no external dimension called time. Einstein's idea of space-time, quantum mechanics idea of space-time is horseshit. It doesn't exist. No wonder none of their crap works out and all their math is bizarre. I've been able to, even taking it down to Planck's Planck level size, using my particular analytical basis, consciousness first, everything else is an illusion, and so on. You can do things like eliminate a lot of the constants. You don't need Planck's constant if you focus on everything from consciousness and not from grit. Do the work to derive it, you'll see it doesn't need to exist. That Planck's constants arises because Planck had a gritologist viewpoint, and they did the structure of his testing within a cube. And so none of the testing worked, so he had to develop this constant to make all of the math work. The constant disappears if you take that cube and you collapse it down to a tetrahedron, which is the base shape. Then all the math works out without the need for Planck's constant. The stuff appears where it should be, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, though, so this guy, I'm sitting there and he shows me about this idea of the river. That was the point where I got across to him the idea that they could use molecules, put them into oil, and make an emulsion that would dry on the sides of their building. He was so happy about that he basically told me in an emotion-filled, just flooded me, just destroyed me, drove me back onto the ground, so to speak, when he got that idea that I had made all of his years, decades. Apparently he'd been doing that for like maybe hundreds of our years, going into hyperspace, trying to seek a solution. And he had one, and he was able to go back. He was happy. Never saw him again after that.
Wow. So you solved this problem.
Yeah, and I got huge amounts of knowledge out of him. This is a cooperative, harmonious universe, right? And so if you give
Yeah, I think so.
value,
Yeah.
you get value.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So
Well,
this
and
is
that's
where you
the
got your ideas of time with that river, your understanding
no,
of time.
well, I'd been noodling about time for a long time, for many years. And also you have to understand that within that experience, I'm still in the delusion. Did my mind create another consciousness in order that those thoughts might be drug up out of my consciousness? Therefore, did he actually exist, or was it just a figment of my mind necessary in order to instruct me because I'm so dense I couldn't get the thing direct?
Yeah, it's the nature reality. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Right. There is no real, so you can just stop. It's all consciousness. There is
Yeah, I
no
agree.
reality.
Consciousness is the universe. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Wow.
it's quite remarkable. And then think about all of the things that allows. Of course, Jesus was manifesting like all hell. Consciousness talking to consciousness in a co-creative fashion to spit out matter. Simple as hell, right? And I've done it. I've deliberately done manifestations. And it got kind of boring, you know. I don't need another income stream, right? You know, and just so, you know, because of course all of these kind of things. We have our egos and our wants and desires and so on. And so I discovered people like Neville Goddard. So he's been doing that work in the 1920s, right? He was doing manifestate. He did it from the Bible,
Rocket. Yeah.
and he did it from a Bible perspective, but he used the Bible just to get Christians to do it because otherwise they would have thought he was doing magic. And he was trying to get around their prejudice and
This
stuff.
is the rocket program, right? Goddard rocket program.
No, 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 no. Neville Goddard, he was a dancer in the
Oh, that Goddard.
in Broadway in the 1920s.
Oh,
And
okay.
and then he went on to a career of teaching people to manifest.
Well, I'm glad we clarified which Goddard we're talking
Yeah,
about.
there's quite a few of them out there actually. Yeah. But so
Yes.
they've got tons of YouTube videos on him now. I think we're going to come into this paradigm where we're going to get this understanding, and that the understanding is everything is supreme consciousness. We're just isolated, tricked little bits of supreme consciousness. Ergo, we co-create that illusion that tricks us into thinking about the isolation. Ergo, we can manipulate that illusion with our minds and make what we want. And so I think we're going to have schools of manifestation. I think we're going to get into group manifestation where, like group RV work, right? The remote viewing work. Not much difference between remote viewing, where you're sending your mind out and actively turning your antenna into a receive to get the information out of the future or wherever you conceive of it. But there's not much difference from that and flipping it to projecting. Let's project a future that we want to see manifest. So that's why
Yeah.
I think Apophis is not going to be a big deal. I think we'll actually set up some kind of organized approach to secure our future that way, and we won't have much of a problem with it. There's huge other challenges though. One of our major challenges, in my opinion, is that most humans have the gritology paradigm, and the gritology paradigm leads to errors in thinking
You
and
mean like
bad actions.
scientism? The physical reality is all there is?
Gritology, matter exists,
Yeah.
relative
It matters
materialism.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right, right. Matter as a substrate. No, it doesn't exist. But because you think that, you're going to make all these really wrong conclusions. And when it comes to dealing with advanced beings, you're going to think they've got greater consciousness. That's a error of thinking that comes to you from gritology, right? That somehow the more atoms that smack together, the bigger the consciousness, or something along those lines, which is horseshit. And so you're going to make all these errors of thinking from the get-go because of your inbuilt base of assumptions, right? You assume grit. You assume grit is real. And if you're a gritologist, no wonder consciousness can't be described by your science. It's like a fish trying to describe the water he swims in,
Yeah.
right? They
Brain
didn't see
scientists
it.
can't explain where consciousness comes from. They claim they can't explain where it comes from.
Yeah,
They say
yeah,
that.
right. And it's also so absurdly simple. A consciousness is seated in your claustrum, which is this small little gland that's in your brain that receives the fluid from the pineal gland and from the pituitary.
Yeah, so I
It's
think the brain is like an
random.
organ that receives consciousness, like where the eye sees forms of
No,
waves.
no, 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 it doesn't exist. No, no, no. The brain doesn't receive consciousness. Consciousness creates the brain. When we go to look for a seat of consciousness, supreme consciousness happily creates these incredibly complex structures that we can apply our understanding to say, aha, that's where my seat of consciousness lives in this reality. But it's really the other way. My consciousness has created this body and is seated within this body in a particular
Yeah, okay.
place, right? And if you
That
go and
makes
slice
sense.
it up, you won't ever find the consciousness, but you'll find something that you say, oh, it could be seated here if this being were alive, that sort of thing. But because we have this ass backwards way of doing things, we're going to get ourselves into trouble with these non-human intelligences for some considerable period of time because we're coming from an entirely different paradigm that they don't even conceive of. They wouldn't even, the gritology arises from the Talmud, period, from the
Yeah, pure
Babylonian
physical.
Talmud all the way through. Prior to that, in Vedic literature, for instance, in Buddhist literature
Yeah,
and
Buddhist
Taoist
literature,
literature,
the Buddha. Yeah,
consciousness is all, right?
yeah.
We have that paradigm there. They just never got very reductionist and scientific about it. When they did get reductionist and scientific about it, they put layers and shit and put all this structure and basically defined and codified the illusion
I think
without
Eastern thinking is
recognizing
closer to reality. Like
right,
Buddhist
right.
thinking is closer to reality. Yeah.
But there again, watch your language. There is no closer to reality. We create the reality we want to see, right? It doesn't exist outside of our consciousness.
Well, I guess the Eastern way is saying that more than the
We
Talmud.
need to, that's a big problem for us is that we have these connotations. We have to communicate in words. Even if we were using telepathy, I would have to pull a word out of your mind in order to get it up there into the linguistic center to be understood by you. And so the word has a context attached to it that is built up by our emotions. Again, my particular bitch relative to our guys dealing with non-human intelligences. Do they have emotions? Do they conceive of the emotions the same way we do? Do the non-human intelligences have their emotions affect their thinking and their intelligence the way it does with us? If so, great. But I wouldn't assume that. And I would sure as hell want to codify it down to the gnat's ass before I started using particular words because of the context they have for humans that would not necessarily be received in that same way by the non-human intelligence. That's why all these people writing books about love and light and all of this kind of shit with the space aliens, throw them away, burn them. It's not worth it. Yeah, they've had that experience, but none of that experience is meaningful to the rest of us because it's not codified with, or it's not qualified in the common shared reality. It only exists within their reality.
Yeah, I guess, well, it's not part of our, maybe it's gradually coming into our reality. Maybe it's a gradual process over decades or even centuries of coming into our reality. I don't know.
That's that. Okay. And so there you go. I would doubt that because then you're talking about the gradual change in the human perception and mind, not the actual change of our projected reality. So we've got aliens out there in the eternal now. Um, they were not visible in 2016 in the common shared reality. There were UFOs, we've got all of that kind of stuff, but there was no active alien presence in our local eternal now in
Well,
2016.
some people reported seeing them in person
No, no,
long
no, no, no,
before
no,
that.
no, no. Yeah, but anybody seeing a person, anybody reporting a corporeal alien,
Like a gray kind of thing.
yeah, any of that, that's all still within their mind, within the illusion. Okay. So we don't know what they actually saw. They don't have a picture of it. They don't have a slice of its flesh. There's no energy. There's no matter that had
Well,
been
what about the
energy crystals.
the bodies in the crash craft? They
We
admitted
do
at
not.
Congress.
Okay. So all of these are hearsay.
Yeah.
So we don't know that any of them are actually material until I actually see something. So, it's kind of like, well, my dad was from Missouri, right? Show
Well,
me
remember
something.
David Grush's testimony in Congress.
Oh,
He's
sure, sure, sure.
high-ranking
But
intelligence.
he didn't see any of them. He's not a firsthand witness. It's like the
That's
Bible.
true.
Okay, no words in any of the Bibles were written by eyewitnesses. They were all written at least one generation beyond the time they were talking about. So we don't know what the fuck happened, right? It's just a bunch of Corey Goods out there writing shit down for their own purposes. So no, I do not accept any of that. I'm certain that there have been incidents, and I'm certain that there are things that freak out our government. But beyond that, any of the details are suspect, and I'm not going to put any of my effort in my thinking to trying to form a conclusion off of information that I'm suspicious of, right? So it doesn't further me along. But I do know that the aliens are out in the eternal now, our
Yeah.
local eternal now. They're
Yeah.
here in this time that we call 2026.
Yeah, I think
They
they are.
weren't.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I see them. Okay. So myself and others that live in the now. So when I died and I came back, I had 2 years, really great difficulty where I would get really wonky and stuff. And it's because um, the connection to the common shared reality was a little bit different or a little bit loose or something. So I am actually able to sit here and alter my vision. And you know, where people say they see auras.
Yeah. Yeah. I sometimes see a bit of that.
Okay. An aura. You have any idea what that is?
I guess it's the chi energy around the body and the mind.
No, we can't measure chi. Okay, that's just another word for consciousness. Okay, it is actually bioluminescence. It is biophotons, okay, coming out of the body that are triggered by your emotional process. Every single fucking cell in your body communicates with light, with biophotons. Your aura is the biophotons that are fading out. That's that's your body fading back into supreme consciousness. Light is the most ephemeral form of energy, the most powerful form. We communicate with light throughout our entire cells. So I can sit here and I can actually watch my body fading off into the non-reality of those 22 trillion times a second that no longer exist. Okay. Other people would see that and they would say that's their aura. But if they were actually to stare at it, they could see the aura rise up and dissipate, go back into supreme consciousness. It's a recycle kind of a thing.
Yeah, it dissipates. I've seen
Okay,
that. Yeah.
right. So I can see that. If I close my eyes, all right. So when you close your eyes, you see light, but supposedly your eyelids would obscure some level of it. Even if you were to put on a heavy duty mask, you still see light.
Yeah, I tend to see patterns of green and purple often when
Okay,
I'm
and I
conversing.
have brown and orange. Okay, not everybody has the same colors. I didn't used to have brown and orange. It used to be yellow and black. And after I died and came back, it was this brown and orange. Now, at that point, I had a level of discrimination in being able to understand what I am actually seeing from the bio. And so bear in mind, these are the biophotons within my eyeballs themselves firing off that are also being received by the eyeball itself. So I'm not actually looking outside my body at all. Nonetheless, within my vision of being able to close my eyes and look out, I can see, as Jesus did, I can see the mountain, the living Father. I can see the event stream coming at me. I don't see it as objects, okay? Jesus had that ability, okay? So he could see out into the event stream and see an object that would be materializing, whatever it might be, and he could change that. And so he could say, turn into wine instead of water, because he would see the water manifesting, being ready to manifest. So I see the manifestation process at the very edge. So my ability to look into it is not very deep. So the eternal now is not this instant. That is our perception. The eternal now is very deep. So there's a lot going on before our perception picks up that instant, okay? And my ability to see that had been altered by these death experiences or the psychedelics or whatever the fuck. Putting a pause to things is something that human minds want to do. It's not necessarily meaningful. Nonetheless, I can see the human consciousness within the event stream causing the common shared reality. And now there's other consciousnesses out there. So I know we are going to be presented with a material manifestation of a non-human intelligence that we as a society, as a species, will have to pay attention to and do stuff with. Doesn't mean everybody's going to be involved with it. government and a few people, maybe, who knows? But nonetheless, there will be some level of active engagement that is not what the games we're playing with the UFO.
But I think the ETs already have probably had a secret relationship with governments for decades, and probably managing the relationship like with disclosure. What do you think of that? That they've
I think
already.
it's bullshit. I think it's bullshit. Okay, my dad was a lifer in the military. Okay, he was a battlefield commission guy in Korea. Those are very rare. He was an officer, and he worked his way up to where he was um, a scones, or he was stationed to the White House in Lyndon Johnson's time. Okay,
Oh, really?
he
Wow,
was he was
Johnson
there in
issue.
six he was there in 68. He was the
Wow,
military liaison between the White House and the Chicago Democratic Convention riots.
really?
He
Wow.
was in charge of coordinating with the law enforcement and basically trying to keep people safe. That was his job there. So he had a very stellar career, 3 times in Vietnam. The last time in Vietnam, okay, so in 1968, he becomes the permanent attaché to the White House from this particular part of the military because of his job in the Chicago Convention thing. Something occurred. And now my mom is very pleased, she's all whipped up. He's going places, hobnobbing with the elites, all of this kind of shit, right? I wasn't too, it really weirded me out. Anyway, so we're in Virginia, and he's going a lot to the White House, working there quite frequently, and in DOD, actually going into some place in the Pentagon. At some point, he comes back, and he sends my brother and myself off, and he and my mom have this tremendous fight, and it goes on for a couple of days. My brother and I have no fucking clue what's going on. Anyway, at the end of that period of time, my dad had volunteered to take the 101st Airborne, a division of them, to Vietnam to occupy the mountain territory around Pleiku. They took him over by boat. So he did not have to go to combat, right? He didn't have to go back and assume that role or anything. His career path was not headed that way. He'd done his time in Nam. He'd been wounded the second time he was there. But okay, so at some point later, he told me what precipitated all of that. He had gotten into the Pentagon deep enough that he had encountered the alien issue. Okay, so my father had actually run into it in the Pentagon as just a regular guy. Now, okay, so now he and I had a relationship with UFOs all my life, because when I was right after I was born, he had been stationed in Alaska. And so my first years of life were in Alaska, and he was involved in the installation of what were known as the DEW, the DEW, the Defense Early Warning System. These vast, huge, giant radar things all around Alaska, looking at Russia, right, in case they were going to come over the North Pole and bomb the fuck out of us. Those things drew UFOs like you wouldn't believe. So I would go out with my dad sometimes, and especially at night, we'd go to there, and there'd be UFOs all the fuck around these giant radar things, right? Anyway, so he and I knew about UFOs. We discussed them when I was a kid, but there wasn't anything to resolve. We couldn't get them. They were cool. We both wanted to have one to go zipping around and stuff, but you know, you're muted.
Oh, did they look like flying saucers? What did
Yeah,
they
no,
look
there were
like?
discs, right? There were
Disc, yeah.
also orbs, but there were clear discs. Anyway, so in 68, early part of 69, the last months of 68, he encountered something in the Department of Defense. He had a reaction that obviously caused the Army to react to his reaction. Whatever that was, he never told me. I was never privy to any of that. But the upshot was he was offered some kind of a choice. And the easy choice for him was to choose to go back to Vietnam and risk being killed. So apparently they told him, you can't get out of this, you can't say anything, and we're going to send you off to Vietnam, and if you survive, maybe we won't fuck with you.
You
Right?
mean
So,
they wanted him to maintain secrecy about UFOs?
I don't know. I don't know. He told me
See,
later that he encountered aliens, the subject, not the beings. He encountered some form of proof of non-human
So
intelligences.
maybe he wasn't supposed to know. Maybe he was punished for that.
Whatever it was, it got him into problems with officialdom. Okay. And he was no longer going to the White House. He was, there was like maybe a 3 or 4 week period of time where he didn't go into work or anything. And then the division was prepared and he took them by troop ship over to Vietnam.
Oh, that's too bad,
And then he went into the Pleiku and was the military governor of Pleiku for a while during the Tet Offensive. And then he came back and he was extremely altered. The experience of dealing with whatever it was affected him. Whatever kind of information he came across or whatever affected him so great that he wasn't able to speak of it. It really torqued out his mind. It was
So he
easy.
never talked to you after that about UFOs?
Oh no, we would talk about it, but we could get. You have to understand. So when he came back so the '69 offensive was terrible. Okay, Pleiku was this like little mud village up in the mountains with the indigenous population that the Chinese-based Vietnamese don't like, right? So just like Indians here in the U.S. My dad was very fond of the Montagnards. They loved him. My dad is actually a role model for Apocalypse Now. Okay, he was the military governor of Pleiku. It was cited in Pleiku, the whole thing there, right? Anyway, though, so it was horrific. The Tet Offensive, they took American bodies and Vietnamese bodies and they stacked them in big walls around their foxholes to absorb bullets. It was that bad. And so he had PTSD like you wouldn't imagine. So the very first night he comes back, I wake up now I had known that this was the potential. So I went and took the firing pins out of all the weapons in the house, right? They were there, they looked good, but they couldn't shoot. No firing pin in any of the shotguns or anything. Or pistols. And so the very first night he comes back, it's probably like 2 or 3 in the morning. I hear something. The dog we have then had come into my room and was trying to wake me up. And I woke up and went on out there. And there's my dad. He's taken all of the furniture from the living room and made himself a foxhole. And he'd taken all the weapons and had crawled into that foxhole to defend himself, right? He was still in Vietnam, still PTSD. And my brother and I had to basically fight him to get him back to consciousness and tell him where he was at. And we went on for that for weeks and weeks and weeks. So UFOs
That's
were
tough.
not coming up, right?
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So, we talked about it in later years, but every time we got close to that subject, he couldn't talk about it. He would just, he'd get too agitated and he'd have to just get up and leave.
Wonder if maybe they programmed him that way to not talk about it. I've read cases of that. But, I
You know?
talked to a Mason, and he said he feels that secret societies have held the ET secret for centuries, and so the
Right.
ETs needed boots on the ground people to work with to maintain a
Right.
secret relationship. So I wonder about
And this
that.
and this would, if that idea is factual, then this goes to the idea that the Judaics, the Grand Global Council of elitist Jews, are being run by ETs, the Elohim on the other side of them, right?
Well, that
They
could be,
worship
yeah.
they worship the ETs, and they worship that structure.
I
The
wonder if there's more
Talmudic.
than one group, like a bad group and good. I like to think that there's good ETs relating with governments as well.
I wouldn't think that that's the case. Why would they come here and put themselves at risk? Bear in mind the level of risk is just huge, not only from like bacteria, but from mental contamination.
Well, they could have
So,
some secret relationship relating with the government. Well, I like to think there are good ETs up there.
okay, so I just have the understanding that every being acts only in its own interest. Okay, they're
Well, it's
never.
good karma. Like it's good karma for you to help the world. Might be good karma for them
Sure,
to
sure,
help guide
sure.
the
But that
world.
doesn't mean that they're going to go out of their way to journey here to try and save your ass from your understanding of where we're headed, right? And
Well,
nor would
I
they
think of
necessarily want to have anything to do with humans in terms of how we structure.
I guess part of my hypothesis though is they work all over the galaxy. As steward, like Gardner's stewardship over planets. Like this is just one planet out of many, and this is just another
I don't
planet.
buy that. That's the Galactic Federation shit.
Yeah,
And if
yeah.
you're
I
doing,
don't
yeah,
buy
okay,
that.
so
Yeah.
there's a couple of people I really do follow in terms of their thinking. Bernansky, Buckminster Fuller, and a few of these other guys, great scientists. and they always begin and end with an energy calculation. And so the energy calculation does not, in our universe, doesn't favor giant collections of life running around expending vast quantities of energy for imagined danger or progress on other life. Also, if the aliens have my understanding, they're not going to bother because of all of the issues with karma and everything else. Just because you think you're doing good for humans. Okay, so here's a story. And it's factual. There was this guy, he was a prince. His hobby was insects. He loved them. His father was a prince also. He wasn't a king. He's a Hindu. And he supported his kid in all of this. And the kid's goal was to have the ultimate perfect butterfly. So they built a chrysarium where they had all these butterflies that would, all these creatures that would morph into butterflies. And once he found a perfect chrysalis, and he does everything, he watches it, he grows it, he watches it mature, and finally the most perfect butterfly ever starts struggling out. And it's working and it's struggling and it's doing just great. And it's just the most perfect thing ever. And the kid and his dad, they're just so ecstatic. They have created the conditions that led to this absolute perfect example of a butterfly. And it's just not quite coming out of the cocoon. And there's this one strand of stuff that's preventing the two halves of the cocoon from separating. So the kid gets a little tiny pair of scissors and he snips that little strand of the cocooning fiber. And the cocoon bursts open and the butterfly stands up and is unable to fly because it was that last strand that made it develop the strength to be able to fly thereafter. So the kid's karma, right? So aliens are going to take that view. They're not going to fuck with us because they don't know what our destiny is. And so anybody coming here to fuck with us is doing it for their interest, not ours. And if they cut our last cord, they're not doing us a favor.
Well, that's a good story. Yeah, good story. So he had good intentions, but it did work out right.
The best, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And if you have the appropriate paradigm, you don't do shit like that. You say, it's sad to me that that being is dying now, but my attempting to correct that death will not aid that being nor myself. And there's times when people are just going to die and you just got to be there with them and let it happen. That no amount of work is going to alter their particular point of destiny, and nor should you. It's arrogant, it's egoistic, and so on for you to think that it's in your hands to do that. So I will respond to requests for help, but I'll never intrude on anybody by, pushing
Yeah, that
them
makes
on
sense. Yeah, don't push it on them. It's such a fascinating conversation, Cliff. Where should we go next? We can talk about so many different things.
them. Well, okay, so if we're going to do it more, I have to take a little break and get some more fluid. Okay.
Okay, yeah, take a break. I will
Okay,
too.
so a couple of minutes here.
Yeah, sure. I'll just pause the record. And yeah, so well, yeah, what else would you like to talk about? We can go so many different directions.
Entirely up to you, sir. Anything you want to speak of.
How about let's talk about what are your plans for the future? How's that?
Sure. So I have specific plans. All right. So I'm coupled now, right? So I have Heidi. We're working through the male-female issues to forming a couple, and we're working through the intergenerational issues. She's younger than I am, to forming a couple. And so that's going to occupy a lot of my time. However, 2026 and 2027 are going to be very chaotic. And we're going to have all kinds of stuff that emerges, including major financial problems, new currencies by the time we're into 2027, and complete reshift in everything, the collapse of the 2,600-year commodity cycle, the collapse of 175 years of suppression of the price of silver. And when that busts, it's going to open up all of the hidden technologies, okay, that they've been hiding. Whether it's reverse engineered or whether it's just secret, we made it up and we're inventing it, who the hell knows? I would like to think that it actually is, that there actually is space alien reverse engineered space alien devices for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, I think
Nonetheless,
there are.
though, yeah, and I think that there's a high likelihood of that. But in any event, though, over 2026 and 2027, that part of our reality is going to be exposed, as well as all of those parts of our reality that have been able to be hidden by fiat currency. So the Federal Reserve prints out money and they hand out X number of dollars to the government, but they print out 9 or 10 times as much and they don't tell you. And then they use, because you accept the Federal Reserve dollar as money and will do stuff if they give it to you, they take bunches of their stuff and they pay people to ignore their pedophilia or ignore their organ harvesting or ignore the fact that they've got space alien devices. And they just have this huge quantity of printed up money that they don't tell anybody about that they use to bribe. That's going away because pretty soon nobody will accept their money and they don't have gold or silver in order to be able to bribe people. So everybody that they've bribed about everything, vaccines, everything that's in the news now is coming up because the dollar is dying. UFOs, pedophilia, communist invasion, George Soros, all of this shit. It's all coming up because the dollar is dying. We can't stop that process. We need to harmonize with it, in my opinion, and get ahead of it in order to react with it as a personal kind of a thing. But the social order is mired in ignorance and denial because of the people being paid to be mouthpieces and say vaccines work and the disease is real, et cetera, et cetera. All that's fading. All of those people are going to get their karma and it's all coming out. A lot of it is going to happen over these next 2 years. In that period of time, my plans are to concentrate on myself and Heidi forming a couple and to get us ready for what I think will start emerging in late 2027, which is the not unveiling, the introduction of the hidden technologies. Okay, and so that's what I'm anticipating, right? That's where my focus is. I'm very technically oriented, and I want to get my hands on some of this technology and see what I can do. But I have still promise number 2, right? So over these next couple of years, I'm still preparing myself for this great global battle. Whether it's contention or out and out violence, that kind of thing doesn't matter to me. Apparently, universe wants me to participate. It brought me back for that. And so I'm doing what I can to get ready for that. Building my body, getting my assumptions in line, and getting my paradigm on correctly so that I will be prepared to serve well, to demonstrate my art well, my art of peace, Aikido, in the contention with the space aliens. The ultimate outcome, the best outcome ever for me, would be that we would engage with them and we would arrive at a point of the contention being neutralized, that we were not going to fight, right? I'm afraid that our governments and these kind of people will put us on a path that would preclude that harmonious kind of interaction. I would greatly love talking to space aliens and finding out about them and what they know and how they think and all of this kind of stuff, right? I don't want our government to screw it up. I think that they will screw it up and they can't help it, even if they don't want to. It's because of the paradigms that they're coming from. And universe put me here for this reason. Universe, Supreme Consciousness gave me my focus on UFOs since I was 2 years old in Alaska and had been seeing them, right? And it's a very efficient illusion, as we talked about. It doesn't create the props unless the plot calls for it. So I'm one of its props. So there must be something in my way of thinking in that plot where I will be useful. And so basically that's what I'm doing. I'm abiding. Okay, that's for these next 2 years. I'm going to work on myself and I'm going to abide in peace as all of this chaos goes around, ready for when universe says, okay, we want you to go talk to these dudes. You're prevent the government from talking to them badly or whatever, right? I don't know what my role will be. And I know that there is a chance I will die in it.
You've heard of the idea of the fake alien invasion as a
Mhm.
psyop. Like, I don't think the aliens themselves would actually attack us. I don't see that happening.
I dispute that. dark forest. If we knew that there were aliens on Jupiter, which there are, if we knew there were aliens living in the moon, which there are, and that they had nuclear weapons, we're going to arm, we're going to be aggressive. And there
But they,
are,
they could have attacked us, a century ago or 50 years ago. They never have. I don't see them
that
wanting
doesn't
to
mean that they
attack us.
won't. We can't presume that they think that we the same way we do. It's a mistake to think that. And just because something hasn't happened is not evidence that it won't happen, right? And so we have to judge ourselves in. I think we need, as I say, we need this different paradigm, and we need to have ourselves as humanity slotted into that paradigm in a decent fashion, so that we understand our role, where we're at, our limitations, and our powers. Because humans, males especially, can co-create. No, the last saying. All right, so there's 114 sayings of Jesus, the living Jesus, in the Gospel of Thomas. All right. These 114 sayings are about the art and science of manifestation. The 114th saying is the one that has always freaked out everybody, because it's a question from the disciples saying to Jesus, we should kill Mary Magdalene. She is not as a man. She should be murdered. They actually say we should murder her. And Jesus responds basically saying, and it's in the book, I put it in the Gospel of Thomas, and you can go read it. But he basically says, I shall teach her, don't fret yourself, I shall teach her to become as a man. Now, a lot of people in the gender crap industry were using that as some justification for what they were doing for religious people, right? But what was meant there is picked up in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene herself, where she records the words that she got from Jesus, the secret teachings and stuff. Too bad so many pages of it were destroyed and we don't have it. We only have fragments, but nonetheless, what we get gets to that point of manifestation. And so, as I was saying earlier, I think that the new paradigm will come in. We'll set up classes, we'll discuss it. You'll have an academia that will arise in this new paradigm that will do all kinds of things with consciousness. Consciousness will be the new big thing in academia. And we'll eventually get to the point where they start teaching manifestation classes the way Neville Goddard did, and this kind of thing, at a serious way. And then we'll also get into group manifestation and stuff. And I think that that non-human intelligences already have this understanding if they're able to journey here, because we don't have this understanding and we can't get to Mars with Elon's rockets. That shit ain't going to happen. 3 months in a little can like that, the cans are not big enough to hold all the water that you're going to need.
Imagine liquid fuel rockets is like a
Yeah, it's
100-year-old
absurd.
idea.
It's absurd, right?
Yeah.
So it's never going to happen. Anyway, but they're getting here. The UFOs are here, right? So we know we're going to get into that technology. It's all going to bust out, and I'm going to get my floating RV, right? I want one of the critters to just go around and talk to all these people that I know in various parts of the planet. I want to go see Antarctica, that kind of thing. Purely selfish. And that's going to happen over these next couple of years.
Is this based on your particular programming methods? Is this where you get is this from the
Right.
subconscious or the conscious of humanity?
Correct. People are still spewing. They've really screwed with the internet, and they made it very difficult to do the kind of reports I used to do. So the internet really clamped down when Obama and Biden came in, and they did all these kind of things to, with those social media experts that would say whether it was factual or not, and it really muddied the language, and it made it very difficult for my large language model to work. I had died. I wasn't interested in doing that work anymore anyway, but I still have the program and I'm still interested, and I still do small bits of exploration where I know the language isn't that tainted. So I do have some justification for thinking that there will be a role for me in some way relative to the contention between space aliens and humanity. Now, for one thing, why should space aliens come and talk to our government?
I think they're working from the ground up. Yeah, I think they're going through individuals rather than
Yeah,
government.
they wouldn't even necessarily understand our organization. If
Yeah.
an aliens had a hive mind, they wouldn't understand us at all. They wouldn't understand segregation of separation of powers, any of that. And
Yeah,
they
I think
wouldn't
they have
even
a hive
understand.
mind. Like the Greys are telepathic, like a communal society. So I think it's a good society in that they're not keeping secrets. It's a hive mind, or at least it's a
Okay, and
telepathic
I
community.
dispute that. You have
Yeah.
a, in my opinion, you have a tendency towards a uh, an error in your paradigm approach, right? By assuming good and bad, by putting in that those kind of frameworks. I just assume is and then start working from there. This is or it is not. And then whether or not I put the word good or bad is a label for me, right? It's from my perspective. Remember the butterfly?
Okay.
Is it
Yeah.
good to
Yeah.
cut the last
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
No. Right. So good or bad judged from supreme consciousness is an entirely different understanding. So any alien, grays, hive minds, any of this kind of stuff, fine, I'd like to encounter it. But I don't see any evidence at all of grays. I don't see any evidence of hive mind or anybody interacting with the grays. And if people do have experiences with them, that's fine. It's still within the illusion. And until it enters the common shared reality, I'm not going to put my mind into taking too much of it into account. So you get into the fantasists and they get wrapped up in their own mental illness. And so we have combined mental illness in our common shared reality. And it's continually around us. And we all participate in this combined mental illness. And you accept clues from people and you accept how they are from those clues and how you interpret those clues, you then relay that information out. So we have individuals like the people that like David Wilcock. Maybe he thought Corey Goode was legit.
These are
Maybe he
bad
thought that,
examples, right? Bad
all right.
examples.
So here's something else. Okay, so Carrie Cassidy, she believes that this prisoner, this murderer, Mark Richards, is a captain. He was in a secret space program. He's still in contact with secret space program guys. He's been incarcerated in prison for all of his life for a murder he did not commit because he was in the secret space program and they had to keep him quiet or something. And so her fantasy leads her to believe this bullshit that he's putting out to her. She's constructed many books. She's developing a huge, she's putting the fantasy out into our reality, projecting it out and all of these things. None of it is factual, 100% bullshit. Says he was in Vietnam. He wasn't. He doesn't know how to fly helicopters. He said his grandfather was in Lincoln's secret space program. So, these kind of levels of fantasy have a tendency to magnify, and then other people pile on it, assume that some part of it is factual, and then
Yeah,
it
I
keeps
just avoid
going.
that stuff because it's so
Right.
lies. I
Well,
just
but you
avoid it.
can't because then there's bastards like Corey that get on Gaia, and then later on they assault you on X for saying they're full of shit, right? And so you run into these. So I don't shy away from that. Carrie Cassidy's got her own mental problems and have led her to accept the ravings of a convicted murderer. And none of that is factual. And when I try to tell her that, when I broach any of this, her mental illness is such that she mutes me. So last time I talked to her, I broached the fact that she was living in fantasy and she muted me and could not hear the words. That's how bad her mental illness is, that she does not have the internal strength to hear the words and let them wash over her and then reject them. Just hearing them causes that's where we're at.
So you think
So
this is part of
this
the
is a
whole field
Muslim,
of what the world's listening to, is part of the consciousness field, you mean?
right? And so
Yeah.
this is everywhere. This is in religion everywhere. So that's Carrie Cassidy's religion. Corey Goode's religion was these blue avians, right? The Muslims have their religion that the Quran is inviolate, even though there's other editions of it that predate the edition they're using, right? The Catholics have this thing. The evangelical Christians, Christ rose, and no, he did not. All of the four Gospels that there's only one that says that he rose, and and it was added 400 years or four generations after the events. So, it was a sales tactic. And so they're and like you have people out there with the fantasy like Bo Polney. He has the Bible, which is all about, and it's the Old Testament, which is the Torah, which is the Elohim, and that's a book that had four versions. In the fourth version, they get Moses, Noah, and David. None of those characters existed in the first three versions of the Torah. And so Bo Polney is making all of his math and stuff. He's captured by mathematics, and he's making all of his math, his numerology, work off of stuff that was added later that didn't exist in the first parts of these. So, you might as well just grab a comic book and start working off of that in terms of the validity. We're coming to this paradigm where all of this stuff is coming out because the money is failing and we can't afford the illusion anymore because
That's important, yeah. How the truth is
yeah,
coming out. So
yeah.
there's good news there with the truth coming out then.
Except it's going to be really rough on people because they're like Carrie Cassidy, they can't hear it. Their ego, their personality is so fragile that
Think of scientists. There's Islam, Christianity, but also scientists will probably be freaked out by
oh,
the
sure.
reality.
Rational materialism is going to die. Rational materialism is stupid, right? And that's going to freak them out. So years and years ago, so I worked at Evergreen State College for a while, okay, as a laboratory stores manager, where I was in charge of, dispensing stuff to students so they could do their science experiments and stuff. Okay, I was well suited to this. I don't have a degree. I got out of high school real quick because long story doesn't matter, but I went to school in Germany. So I had calculus, all of this kind of stuff before high school, intense philosophy. I came on back. I had so many credits I could have graduated without ever doing a high school in the United States, right? As it was, I went through like a year and a half of high school because there was nothing to do. I couldn't get a job or any of that. So I just went to school. Anyway, I graduated early and all of that. I don't have a degree, but I went and applied for this job, and I was perfectly suited for it because I know science. I'm technical. I love all of the gear. I know all of the sock slit apparatus. I know the names of all of the glassware, all of the different kinds of constituents of the chemicals. And they give you, all these professors were the examining ones, and they gave me chemical formulas to tell them what this was. It's like, oh, well, that's alcohol, this is acetone, and so on. I could just read these things right off. And so they hired me for that job, right? And so in that job, I met some really interesting people like Paul Stamets. He was doing his graduate work there. He's the mushroom guy. And he was specifically using the scanning electron microscope that was down two floors in the building I worked in, and I had all of the supplies for it. So I got to know all of these guys. Anyway, long story. One of the guys there at that time was a professor, he and his wife. It was Brett Weinstein and his wife, Heather Haying. Okay, these are personalities on YouTube now. They're evolutionists. A big ruckus at Evergreen. They leave all of the people getting on their case for supposed racism, all the woke people, and they get canceled. And so they don't have those jobs anymore. They sue them. They get a bunch of money and stuff. Anyway, or they have a settlement. In between them, they started their YouTube channel. And on their very first YouTube channel, this is just a weird little thing that sticks in my mind, I gave them a super chat. Okay, they would answer questions if you would give them money, right? They didn't know where their future was going to lie, and this made sense for them to do. And so I was like the second or third person to give them money on YouTube, and I gave them $200 to answer a question for me, and that is, what is evolution? What is human evolution if space aliens are real? Meaning human evolution, you got to throw out. Darwin, you can't apply any of his principles to humans if space aliens are real, because very likely space aliens did do engineering on us.
Yeah, I think the DNA, they probably brought our DNA here and altered us.
No. They didn't bring it here. Okay, so there's no point to
Or
that.
altered it, you mean?
Yeah, they would alter it. Why would you ever bring anything anywhere if you have that energy? You'd create it, right? Just zap it. Okay, but here's the fact of the matter. We have one less chromosome than all the other primates. Okay, that makes us hairless, that makes us human, that gives us the intelligence. But here's a weirdness. Our chromosomes, our DNA shows damage. It shows damage specifically from the same kind of machine as we damage other DNA when we do CRISPR. When we alter DNA with CRISPR, it causes specific kinds of damage. Our DNA shows that damage. We have a fused point where our second chromosome was fused out of existence, burnt right off. And there's still the scar of that. But here's the really weird part of it. Every single one of our chromosomes has a tail end called a telomere. These chemicals, the telomeres, they gradually erode, and when your telomere runs out, you're going to die soon because they're supposedly an indicator of the length of your life, right? And they get burnt off by life. Well, we have a weirdness. Every one of our chromosomes has a telomere at the end of it. But our number two, the slot for number two is gone. So the third chromosome, which we now call number two, it's twice as long as any other, and it has telomeres in the middle as well as at the end. So our number three chromosome is the number two chromosome extracted from our DNA and turned around and bonded to the number three telomere to telomere. So that is not anything that is ever covered by Darwin's evolutionary theory, right? This is proof that humans were genetically engineered, that we were
Yeah.
modeled. Okay,
So who
absolutely.
did it? Probably ETs did it then.
Correct. So no
Yeah,
human at that time had a CRISPR machine,
I
and we
think
wouldn't be
so.
necessarily doing it ourselves and so on. So I asked Brett Weinstein and Heather Hang as an experiment. I gave them $200. Everybody's giving them, $5 or $10 or whatever, right? And I had crypto, and I was making money as as a consultant, that kind of thing. So it was no big deal. And I wanted to do an experiment myself. And the results were that Brett Weinstein has an open mind. It shocked him, the amount of money, and then the question. His wife does not. Heather Hang instantly dismissed it. Aliens can't exist, and it wouldn't make any difference if they did. Okay, she was very, very, what is this stupid ass question? Because she's used to college kids, deferential treatment, and so on, right? I would not treat, I would give Trump due respect, but I'm not going to be deferential to his opinion on any fucking thing, right? Or anybody. Yours, I'm not even deferential to my own opinion. Okay, so, but I was pleased to see that it tweaked Brett's mind. Okay, he is insightful. I find that his mind is very insightful. It's rigid and it's structured under the paradigm that he's operating under, so it's codified to grit. And he is Jewish. He's Ashkenazi, so he has this grit background there. But he doesn't have a closed mind, unlike his wife. Women, after they get to a certain point, by the way, they do have a tendency to get to their minds being less flexible. This is around in their late 40s, perhaps. Um, but just an observation. In any event, though, so Brett said he actually sort of responded to it because he saw what was going on. Now, here's the kicker. That was in, whenever, 2016, 2015, right after their blow up with Evergreen State College and all of that. Now we come to this point here this year. Brett's been on Joe Rogan saying, what if Darwin was wrong? And he talked with Joe Rogan about all of these things. His mind is opening up to it. He's seeing the fractures in his paradigm. He's probably always seen them. Now he understands that maybe there's another approach to this. That I think is maybe I'll be known for bringing that out. Okay, an approach for scientists to not go batshit crazy when dealing with consciousness, to just flip the paradigm and start from the consciousness and then work your way down in reductionism and see what you end up with. I've found it to be quite the fascinating mental experiment. And I've invented stuff. I've got a bunch of inventions that I have not bothered to patent because the patent office is corrupt. And it's better off that I wait until all of this stuff shakes out. We're going to totally redo government over these next 2 years. You won't believe how much is going to fall away once we can't pay for these delusionary, anti-human kind of things, probably being run by space aliens and paid for by our tax dollars. But anyway, so it's going to be a fun 2 years, Guy. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm up leveling my game, right? I'm getting more formal, because when we start talking to space aliens, I'm not going to want to show up and look like a gym bro, right?
Yeah, I like this large language model. Anything you predict for the future is fascinating. And I think these conversations are good just for raising consciousness in society, even if we disagree on various things. Just the fact that we're talking about it raises consciousness. So I think that's helpful.
Awareness. We
Yeah,
can't alter
awareness.
consciousness.
Well, raising awareness. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. Wow. So anything else we should talk about? We've been going over about 2.5 hours. This has been
Now
great.
I'm getting a little tired and I'm getting a little hungry too. So
Yeah, I'm getting hungry too. Well,
yeah,
it's been a great first meeting. I'd love to talk to you again, Cliff. I'm really
sure.
just honored
Set
to
something
talk to
up.
you, and you're such a
Yeah.
breadth of knowledge. And you give me other perspectives. Like my hypothesis is flexible and uncertain, so you give me stuff to really contemplate on. So I thank you for
Hey,
that.
be comfortable with uncertainty, right? And harmonize with irreversibility, because that's what universe wants. It wants irreversibility. If you notice, one of the key issues of our entire existence You can't undo acts. Never.
True. Yeah.
And where do we ever see this discussed in physics or anything? You can't cause the thing to roll back up the hill, that sort of thing, right? And so there is a one-way flow. This is the event stream. This is sequence. It is the sequence of everything that gives us the sense of duration. It is our personal body sense of duration that makes our mind think time exists. And we can get into that the next time.
Yeah. Next time. Okay.
In
Well,
this
thank you,
eternal
Cliff.
now, right?
Great conversation.
Yeah. Well, thanks much. It was actually a lot of fun.
It was. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay.